Hello, and welcome to the quick starter guide of my lifetime repertoires based on the Chebanenko Slav. As the whole idea of the quick starter guide, I will try to give you the basics so that you can feel confident that you can play the Chebanenko Slav and meet all the other alternatives white has on moves 1, 2, and 1 and 2, basically. Yeah. So in this quick starter guide, I will try to put more emphasis on explanations. So I will try not to burden you with too many variations. I will try to keep them short because for that you have the main course. And here I will try to explain as detailed as possible the ideas behind the moves, behind the plans, and therefore give you a good foundation on which you can build later on with the exact moves. I will try to keep it concise, paying attention to the most probable, most commonly played moves, even starting from move 1. So for example, in move 1, we won't be covering here the moves like G4 or C3. So I will guide you through the main moves white has on move 1, which are D4, knight F3, C4, B3, and also F4. So let's have a look. Let's start with F4. This is the bird's opening. The least probable of the others. However, it is popular with people who play the Dutch with black. So just playing their favorite opening with white sometimes makes sense to them. For us, for black, doesn't really matter much because, again, the beauty of the whole repertoire based on the Chebanenko is that black basically plays in the same manner in vast majority of the times, and the F4 move is no exception to that. So D5, yeah, knight F3, and now knight F6. So the usual normal moves, and now white has 3 possible setups here. And these are the G3, which is the Leningrad system of the Dutch, obviously with colors reversed. Then we have the E3, D4 stonewall structure. And we also then have the classical Dutch with E3, bishop E2, and then B3, bishop E2, and so on. So let's take a look at these. G3 is the reversed Leningrad. It's possible, obviously, to play like this. And what is important here for black is that his usual Slav development with C6, okay, is not just the development, but it also includes this idea of going queen b6. This idea we have seen and we will see, for example, in the London system, that when the queen quickly gets out to b6. Here the point being that f4 weakened this g1 a7 diagonal, and black will play queen b6 to make it a bit more difficult for white to castle. So after bishop g2, queen b6 is the important move. And now this makes it awkward for white to castle. The normal move to stop that is e3, and now bishop g4. Again, following the Slav principle, yeah. The idea here being to push e5. So bishop g4 aims to now pin and then later capture that knight on f3, which controls the e5 square. Therefore, the plan will follow knight bd7 and e5. So after h3, bishop f3, queen f3, knight bd7, and then pushing through e5. So in this, here it's kind of obvious black is very comfortable in the center. He will push e5, the bishop will come to d6, and it's good to have the option.
Hello, and welcome to the show. The semifinals start today, and there is a slightly unusual lineup for the Ginger GM channel. I am today wearing the orange T-shirt in in honor of Ginger's beard. Obviously, I am Peter Svidler, and with me is Grandmaster Alex Colovic, and we will be doing the coverage of today's semis, and they are very exciting semis. There is an All-American semi between Hikaru and Wesley, and there is also a match between Magnus and Jan Nepomniachtchi, which is, I think Jan has been one of the more uncomfortable opponents for Magnus in sort of, he still has a decent record, but even though the record improved for Magnus, I think, in recent years, I still feel that Jan definitely is somebody who has a decent shot at doing well against Magnus, as decent as maybe, anyone in this format. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, okay. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. Thanks to Simon as well, even in his absence. Yeah, and yeah, I agree because I think at some point he was like 3-0 up in classical games. Now it's maybe 4-1 or something like that in classical.
Yeah, I think maybe it was even 4-0 at one
Uh,
point,
maybe
and,
maybe
and
for
then and
4-0.
then he lost a game. Yeah,
Yeah.
and well, he seems he actually, I think, referred to it in yesterday's interviews. I did not hear the entire interview, but I did see some quotes from it on Twitter, and he suggested that the field in general is not particularly afraid of Magnus, but I do believe that he can definitely say that about himself. He is, I mean, he just in case of Jan, I don't think he is afraid of anybody or anything
No.
apart
No.
from maybe himself having a bad day. I think he is one of the people who you can say are sometimes their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that should be a very exciting matchup. And of course, on the other half of it, there is the Nakamura So match where, um, like, my default setting is always to think that Hikaru is obviously a
Yeah.
favorite, but
Yeah.
then
But
you and then you start thinking about just how much improvement Wesley has demonstrated in recent times in terms of playing these online events, and you start thinking, how clear is this?
no.
Maybe it's not clear at all.
No. 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 No.
Maybe you can't really assign Hikaru as an obvious favorite in that match.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I mean, Wesley, I think he's running on actually riding a great wave of optimism, I would say. I mean, he crushed the US championship, and now, I mean, he survived against Rajabov, and I think he's on a very good streak. So I wouldn't say that Nakamura is a clear favorite or even a favorite. I wouldn't say so. So I think this is completely unclear to me how it can turn out. I mean, okay, they have to play at least 8 games.
Yeah,
So
there's definitely going to be at least 8 rapid games and potentially some more played.
yeah,
And there was a question in chat which I didn't reply in chat because I wanted to also talk to you about it. The series between Magnus and Anish that concluded yesterday. The question was: is Magnus out of shape? Is he having a bad week, or did Anish improve so much that Magnus is having so much trouble beating him? Because that was an incredibly close series, actually.
yeah.
So what's your take? And also, thanks very much for the sub to the Ginger channel, Declan Walker. Yeah, I'm sorry about pronouncing names. So what's your take on the Magnus Anish dynamic?
Well, I mean, I can't say whether Anish has improved a lot or a little, but I think that Anish is just incredibly motivated when he plays Magnus, and then probably this gives him a little bit of an extra push or strength, maybe. And maybe just the things coincided. I mean, maybe he was super motivated, and then Magnus was maybe a little bit off. And but I mean, we've seen this with Magnus. I mean, even when he's off, he's winning tournaments, and even when he's playing badly in his own words, he's winning games and tournaments. So beating Magnus in any states, it's just not an easy thing. So I don't know. I had my actually feeling from the match was that Giri should have been more brave, more courageous. Uh,
Yeah, it seemed like it was a very peculiar combination of things, right? In particular, that game in the Ragozin, I think that was day one,
yeah,
right?
the first one.
Where he went for arguably the sharpest line against the Ragozin that you could possibly go for. He played extremely well. He played quite clearly. He played that game kind of sharply for a win with Black from the beginning, because like if you want to equalize against the Bishop 4
Right.
Ragozin, I'm pretty sure there are quieter ways to play there. And then when he could have continued in the same way, and he somehow just hit the brakes really, really
Yeah.
hard, started trading pieces, and the game ended being drawn.
Yeah.
And it was just so strange to see him like switch. He was playing an absolutely perfect game. That was like the upsetting part for me, was that up until the moment where he did not play bishop d3 or bishop e2, and I think I might even be able to bring this up for a
Yeah.
second. I think I have that. Yeah, like they got to. Hang on a second. Let me click on something. Yeah, they got to this position.
Yeah.
I assume you can. You should be able to see it on your screen, guys. And in this position, it's not that easy to allow queen takes c7 with check. But I think
Yeah.
he also had enough time. So if you start considering, it really is only one check. So
Yeah.
if you play bishop e2, there's basically no defense against threat of bishop takes f3 because the rook on g1 is completely alone there. And of course, you cannot really go rook h1 because both queen g2 and rook g2 looks
Yeah. Just
crushing.
collapse.
Yeah, and even like if you consider that really the only move white really wants to be making here is rook c5 c2, which will force some trades. And in that respect, you just go bishop d3, and you say, as long as I've ruled out the move rook c2 here for you, like yes, you can take on c7 with check, but now this king on c1 is just completely defenseless. There is no defense against queen takes e3, apart from maybe playing queen f4 back, and then black can do more or less whatever he pleases. I suspect rook c8 is like mate in 5 here or something. Rook takes e3 doesn't look like a mistake either. And it was just so strange to see him somehow default, to playing solidly after playing a wonderful attacking game up to that point. He was really, really, really playing not just well, but also in the absolutely correct spirit. It felt to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know how to explain it, honestly.
No, I mean, probably something psychological. I mean, how else can you explain it? I mean, he's strong enough player to understand these things, and something subconscious or whatever, just pulling up the handbrake all of a sudden in the middle of the course. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
just,
the match was incredibly close, and Magnus basically won it by winning one game where Anish once again, even that game, like I understand we have other things to talk about, but if you remember, it ended up being a positional masterpiece for sure.
yeah.
But on the other hand, they got to this position, and Anish more or less just said, I'm a pawn up, but I will try to play as safely as possible by trading everything. And he took on g6, took on d8, and then played rook e2. I guess maybe he underestimated just how annoying this position is after bishop e3. But still, you can take on d8 here and then just play something like knight f3.
Yeah.
And like, why would you even think you have to, minimize your risks? I don't think there are, very many risks here at all for white. So why not just continue playing for all three results and see where it gets you? And I think once again, basically the entire match turned on these, the couple of decisions by Anish where he sort of went into his shell a little bit.
Exactly.
Instead of continuing to play normally, which was, he was doing extremely well playing normally. And that has to be the upsetting part about the whole thing for him. If he looks back on that match and he thinks, as long as I was playing every game sort of for a win or not really thinking about being safe, I was doing extremely well. And then there are those couple of moments where I, for some reason, decided to take a safe route. And those ended up costing him probably the entire match.
Yeah, definitely. No. I mean, in these matches, it's always about a few decisions. I mean, they're so close. It's always about a few decisions, and these decisions were bad. I mean, looking backwards from his point of view. So
yeah. But anyway, that's all in the past, and we have two very exciting matchups today. So we probably should stop talking about the match against Anish.
Yeah. Maybe, can I ask you something? I mean,
sure.
These players are supposed to play 4 games today, right? How do you prepare for these matches? I mean, you prepare 2 whites, 2 blacks, and then obviously, I mean, how do you do it? I mean,
I assume when you say you don't actually mean me, right?
Well, you have played these matches as well, so
Yeah,
you
but
also
I just don't really prepare.
What do you mean?
Well, maybe if I'd gotten to the match stages, maybe I would have taken this in a slightly different direction. But I definitely, when we were playing the round robin, it's 5 games against 5 different people, and I would, have some kind of a vague idea of what I wanted to sort of play on move one against those 5 people, and that was the full extent of my preparation, because it feels to me that these days I am very, very bad at actually guessing what my opponent will play. So it's a lot more efficient for me just not to overload myself with crap, frankly, because like it just ends up being time spent on something that has a 1% likelihood of happening, and that's really not very useful for me. But for these guys, they have such a history, and the games are starting. So as you can see, there
But
are
in the
finally
matches, I
things
mean, I'm pretty
happening.
sure against one opponent, you can and you should kind of.
Yeah, of course, in the match situation, it becomes that's very interesting to me because sorry, I get very excited when I see Grunfeld's. I get very, but I was going to say there was a very interesting idea introduced against me in this particular tournament by David Anton, but that for that, Black needs to play knight b6 here, and Jan is a very, very committed bishop g7 player. In fact, I think he is one of the few people who never really strayed from bishop d2, bishop g7 in this position, and e4 specifically, knight takes e3. But I think his most recent encounter in this line has not been. I think he lost that really, really upsetting 15-move game to Vichy in I'm struggling to name the tournament exactly. That was probably the Legends, right? No, but that was earlier than the Legends. During one of the earlier tournaments.
Wasn't it the Olympiad? No, it was.
Yeah, it was the Olympiad. Exactly. Yeah, it was it wasn't the Olympiad actually. Yeah, or the online cup. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, something online.
Yeah,
but
the FIDE online cup. That was where that game happened. So the very, very recent exposure to this line for Jan has not gone particularly well, but I'm sure they've done some repair work for it. So I'm curious.
For the opening, was it? I mean, the opening wasn't to blame that much.
Well, I mean, he was lost. I can even maybe recall the exact move order. I think it went c5, d5, bishop c3, bc, castles. I think it went like queen, maybe in some order: queen d2, queen d6, f4, e6, bishop c4, and somewhere around here
there was some trick. Yeah, I mean,
there was a 5 f6, and he just resigned. I'm kind of struggling to remember exactly how it went, but I think maybe we should be like ed5, knight f3, bishop e6, castles,
knight somewhere,
knight somewhere, and then f5, and the game was suddenly maybe even the immediate f5. I'm struggling with the exact order.
Something like this. Yeah.
But obviously today he is not doing the same. He is
knight e6. That's
he's gone knight e6, which is also, of course, a reasonably well-known move, and there's a lot of theory here as well. And the second game, for some reason, hasn't started yet. I'm not entirely sure what that signifies and why we have only one game running. If there's any significance to it. Yeah, that's I think the other very, very topical line as well. I think there's been a lot of development in this line.
Am I allowed to check my files while I'm watching this?
Pretty sure this is one of the advantages of doing this from home. I think I've also on occasion have checked files while doing
because I remember looking at this line. I mean, from White's point of view, to play against the Grunfeld. Then I remember I struggled a lot because I mean everything seemed to be okay for Black, and then I kind of eventually I kind of thought that the easiest for Black is to go like c5 at some point, chop off on c3 and then be fine. I'm just checking my file now. Okay.
I think this is the position where they started playing d6. There is some position where they start. I think Anish introduced an idea of playing d6 somewhere around here, but the Magnus does something else. I really am very tempted to. Let me just actually check, because I'm pretty sure up to long castles it's still those Giri games. Yeah, and they are actually against Jan. And after c6, I think Anish played d6 twice, thinking specifically in this position, and that was
This is
a
the
very
Anand
hang on.
Carlsen game, isn't
No,
it?
no, that went differently. It goes queen c3, f6, f4, knight f7, and in this position, Anish introduced that idea of
Okay,
playing
yeah.
d6, ed6, and then h4, which is a very striking bit of opening innovation, because it's a healthy pawn that we're giving up here.
Yeah.
But we do that in order to completely close down the C and D files and to shift the entire emphasis of the game towards the king side. And Anish scored half a point out of 2 in his 2 games against Jan here, but I think he was doing very well in at least one of them, maybe even in both.
Yeah, I mean, f4 is Anish's move and bishop h3 is Anand's move against
Yeah, I think
Carlsen.
bishop h3 is the old theory. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this also exists.
Yeah.
Actually, it says no games found in this position. Maybe it's queen c3, f6, and then bishop h3.
Yeah.
So it's a slightly different move order.
Yes.
You assume there will be some transpositions, but it's not a given that it transposes. And in the meantime, in the other game, we have a slightly weird move order. I don't think I've seen this very much before. So Hikaru opens with the bishop opening, which I assume is just to say no to a Petrov.
Yeah.
Knight f6, d3, knight c6. And here, if white does this, he normally does this with the intention of developing this guy to e2. But Hikaru, after sort of toying with the idea of developing the knight to e2, goes knight f3 anyway.
Yeah, that's strange.
Which is something I don't believe I have seen very much at all.
But I think there was a recent game with this. I was surprised also at seeing this, but there was quite a recent game with this move order.
I'm really not in touch with the opening theory of this particular line. I mean, one thing to note is that if black doesn't decide to do something striking here, because there are some gambit possibilities here, like knight a5 was interesting me a little bit. But if you play d6 and then eventually you snap on c3, it becomes basically a 4 knights opening with white having the bishop on c4 instead of b5, which I'm not sure is such an advantage for white, honestly, because you have to deal with knight a5 ideas later.
Let me just check. I mean, I'm curious.
So it's an interesting kind of a little take on all the classical openings, and in particular now after h3, like I would be extremely interested in playing knight a5 here, and that's what Wesley actually does.
Actually, sorry to interrupt. I mean, it's actually Kariaki Nakamura just from like 5 days ago.
Interesting. So Hikaru actually adopts something.
Exactly.
Adopts something that Sergei did against him.
Yeah.
It's always so curious to me because I understand it's wrong, but if you showed some kind of a position like this, probably not with the bishop on b4 though. But I want to say, like, as a child, if I had this with black and somebody told me I can trade the light square bishop for white for a knight, I would instantly start thinking, okay, I'm playing this game for a win now with black. I'm already slightly better. Clearly, I'm already slightly better.
Yeah.
So my opponent probably doesn't really understand anything about openings. I am very happy. I mean, clearly all of these things are incorrect because very strong players are now doing this. But still, it's.
But I think this is the progress of chess and chess understanding, because I mean, back in those days, you would say, okay, in the Spanish, they let you take the bishop on b3, black is great, black is even better. But nowadays, okay, like here, similarly, they are doing it and it's okay. I think it's progress how people, thanks to computers, obviously have shifted their understanding that more things are possible actually.
And I think in this particular position, it's actually very important that the bishop is on b4, because I think with the bishop on e7, honestly, I might still think this is slightly better for black. But with the bishop on b4, I think you kind of expect black to have to take on c3 eventually. At some point, and now that you told me this is Kariaki Nakamura, I actually sort of remember the game. Sergei was doing quite well up to a point, and then he got completely outcalculated.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, apparently, Magnus is completely winning by... I will switch the engine off on the second computer. But this is apparently plus 3.5. The game is finished.
Whoa. So he messed up the theory,
Yeah, after bishop h3, Jan just kind of mixed up the move orders, and he played king g8, queen c3, queen b8 quite quickly. And now after d6, The point, of course, being that ed6, f4, there are no squares for the knight on e5. I really should switch the engine off. Hang on a second. But on the other hand, it kind of alerted me
Yeah.
to the fact that something striking is happening on the second board.
Yeah,
This is just completely game over. And actually, after d6, you can't even continue. Like, if you want not to lose the knight, you have to play f6. But then, d and then f4 and then queen takes f6. This also doesn't look very attractive. This is just genuinely game over, which is kind of shocking, considering they played 14 moves of theory. And then by move 16, you can pretty much resign with black.
Actually, as I'm seeing now, I mean, there has been some correspondence games in this line, and the correct move being queen c7, actually.
Yeah, because you need to have the d7 square for the knight. Yeah, it does make sense. I understand why he why he played queen b8, because queen b8, you have a dream of playing c takes d5 next move, whereas after queen c7, the pawn on c6 is pinned.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, all of these things are completely irrelevant if you lose by force. So yeah, that's going to be a painful start for Jan, because
but it sharpens the match immediately.
Yeah, that's fair, but I don't think, like, being afraid of Magnus or not being afraid of Magnus is one thing, but giving Magnus, 1 point odds in a 4-game match is probably not how he envisaged today going for him. So I think we'll only really switch back to this one if something dramatic happens, which I don't expect. I don't expect anything will happen in this game to change this evaluation. So let's watch the Americans slug it out.
So he didn't allow bishop c3, went away with the knight,
Yeah, I was wondering about bishop g5, specifically to stop what Wesley is right now doing, because now bishop a5, because the rook attacks it, we can take on f6. And in the game, we are not in time, so the bishop will actually reach the c7 square, which is, I think, where it belongs. And this, us talking about this game gives me an opportunity once again to introduce a question from chat. From Matty Kronf, who says, Wesley seems like a super talented player, like a human engine, but he draws a ton of games and plays super solidly. And he also seems like he is a humble, nice guy. And do we think that what prevents him from challenging for the title is lack of killer instinct? It's just so difficult to make generalizations like this, but I think he probably would need to become slightly more ruthless and slightly more. I mean, it's so stupid. It sounds so incredibly stupid to say this about somebody who, has been 2,800 and has won plenty of tournaments, but it does feel like he is sort of very much okay with how his life is going and doesn't really feel like he needs to, change very much in it. And this is, something very, very familiar to me. I've done the same thing my entire life, but to push for the next step, which in his case obviously is trying to play a match for the World Championship, because he's done pretty much everything else. He might have to maybe slightly sharpen up his approach. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote somewhere about this. I think I kind of compared him to Petrosian and his approach, and then having somebody actually push him, not him finding this inner desire to be pushed or whatever, but somebody else pushing him, like Rona.
Yeah, Rona was definitely a driver.
Exactly. So
an engine there.
Exactly. So I was kind of ruminating, about whether it's the same case with So. I mean, their styles are in a way, okay, not really, but somehow maybe not style, maybe approach is better word to say. The approach is similar to Petrosian's, and maybe just he needs, I don't know if Lotus serves as this kind of an engine for him or not, if we're drawing an analogy with an important woman in the man's life. But somehow I think things need to fall in place for him to succeed in first qualifying and then winning the candidates. Really, things need to fall like in Curacao for Petrosian. So, I mean, we've seen when things fall in place for So, he's winning super tournaments. Like,
yeah, I mean,
there's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly no no discussion about his his level of play. He
Yeah,
is
of
a
course.
tremendous player. Nobody is ever going to be doubting that.
Yeah,
But also, we have seen from him this I wouldn't say desire, but his definite willingness to kind of tune out a little bit if things don't go his way. There's been a number of tournaments
yeah,
where he started playing ambitiously, and then things did not go his way sort of early on in the tournament. And then he's, I think, reasonably happy to just coast and not do very much and just
yeah,
wait for the tournament to be over because he assumes, probably not incorrectly, that the next one will go better. So
yeah, yeah,
why not just play the next one pretty much.
yeah, yeah.
And I think if you compare it to Magnus, that's where a lot of the difference would be.
Yeah, it's a completely different approach. I mean,
Hmm.
just a different approach to the game, to the life, probably everything. Yeah. So it just, I mean, I think what he does is what he feels comfortable with, and that's what he's doing. So if it's doing well, I mean,
Yeah,
making it 28, what was it, 20, 30? I mean, at some point, I mean, why should he change? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Maybe,
and it's it's so difficult to force yourself to change things dramatically when what you're doing up until that moment is clearly working by
yeah,
most definitions. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
the only definition in which you can say it's not working is if you apply specifically that filter. Has he played a world championship match
yeah,
yet?
yeah, exactly.
No. But he has won super tournaments. He's won numerous super tournaments in his
Yeah,
career
yeah,
already. He is, a very, very, very stable top 5, top 10 player, has been pretty much his entire life
yeah,
once he kind of burst onto the scene. So I think it's difficult to convince yourself that things need to
yeah.
change.
And besides, don't forget he demolished Carlsen in that Fisher Random World
Yeah,
Champion. So I
yeah.
mean, come on, it's difficult to argue. Yeah, I mean, I just think for him things need to fall in place, like I said with Petrosian and Curacao, and then if that happens, he'll just cruise. Yeah, but yeah, it's difficult for these things to fall in place, obviously. Yeah, so we will see. We will see. Yeah.
Yeah. In the meantime, White got the setup with the knights on g3 and f5, which is what you normally want to do here. But because there's a bishop on c7 and also Wesley played d6, d5 very early, normally you would also like to push f4. But with the bishop on c7, much of the sting of the idea of f4 has been taken out, and now the queen is in front of the f pawn. So White needs to find a way to, increase the pressure on the king side somehow without really switching to some kind of a pawn storm. In the meantime, I'll just return to this for one more second. In this game, I assume rook d6, rook h3, rook ed1 kind of effectively ends the game, right? I don't really see how
Looks
you
like
continue from here. You don't even need to do that. I mean, something like rook e3 is probably also not a mistake, but yeah, it's just very, very
yeah,
lost. So we should be talking about this one.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Hikaru does play knight h5, which I thought was, if you want to continue pushing pieces forward, that really was the only move that came to mind. But it allows black to trade some pieces. I think black is just completely fine now, right? We can take.
Should be, yeah, should be.
Yeah, I don't even know if black is so much worse if he takes on f5, but I don't think he needs to.
No, he
Something like,
don't. He needs
yeah,
to.
something like queen f6 feels like, a very natural choice. And
I mean, you're a lifelong player of the Spanish and Italian positions, especially from the black side. And I have played the Spanish all my life from the white side. And whenever I tried playing the Spanish from the black side, I always felt uncomfortable when people were piling up these pieces on the king side a little bit, even though I would realize there is nothing concrete there, but it just felt uncomfortable. So
yeah,
how do you actually deal with that? I mean, it's there, it's not disappearing, it's this annoying little initiative, nothing concrete, but
yeah, you learn to deal with it. I don't think like it's definitely something that exists, but uh, you get adjusted. Hang on a second. Something occurred to me. Let me just ask you: is this a move at all? Can I play this?
really,
Well, I'm asking. Yeah, I don't know
yeah, no, well,
because like my initially I would be very very scared, but I think this is what Wesley is now considering because
yeah,
if you take on f6, then you
yeah,
seem to be more or less forced to take on
yeah,
h6 now. And I mean, this is a very happy position for black.
Yeah, no, this can't be
Yeah, the
good.
bishop returns, we go f6, king
No,
g7,
this is
g5, whatever.
maybe even winning.
So yeah, like the question is, am I blundering something tactically here? Is there a shot here for Hikaru, which I currently am not seeing? Something like queen e3. Maybe I'm blundering some sort of queen e3 here.
Like, yeah.
But once again, like I can even maybe go knight g8 and then start collecting.
Maybe knight h6, gh5, knight g8.
Yeah.
Good.
I go king takes g8. I'm pretty sure I'm not getting mated here, right?
No,
Queen h6, queen
yeah.
d6.
No, this is just the game.
He has played g6 actually. This is very curious. He has played g6. So, I mean, this could actually turn now. I mean, if Hikaru, if no sacrifices actually work, and I am currently of the opinion that no sacrifices are working, then he has to play that endgame that we mentioned, and that endgame definitely is at least a little bit better for black. Yeah,
that's very sad. No.
Yeah.
But I mean, bishop h6 doesn't seem to work. Knight h6 doesn't.
Yeah, I think we just go knight h5. We don't even do anything fancy. We just go for this position, and it's very pleasant for
again,
black.
it's like looks winning.
Yeah.
Knight h6 doesn't work either because of the same idea, knight h5 probably, and that's it. So
I just don't see how you don't take on f6 and h6, and then I mean black is going to be enjoying himself there.
Or maybe he can he bail out like knight f6 and knight d4 to avoid the.
This is clever. I didn't see knight d4. Maybe he has to. Although like the knight will have to go to. It'll have to go to some weird squares, right? Like I can.
No, but even if you exchange queens, what's the problem? You exchange queens, the endgame, bishop pair, like what's?
Yeah, even the endgame I think is slightly better for black. But I would also be interested in something like, can I push I want to push f5. I want to do something like this and ask you, how happy are you here with white?
No, well, no, this is not what you want with white. No,
not particularly, but it might be the best he has. In the meantime, the other game has actually concluded. After rook takes d6, Jan tried playing queen e8 to stop rook d1. Sorry, rook e d1 with queen takes e4, and Magnus, as somebody correctly said in my chat, yes, Magnus is just toying with Jan here. Yeah, bishop b6 fe, rook e d1, and here Jan said, okay, enough is enough. I'm done with this game. Let's start a new one.
And when do they start the next ones?
I think there's like a 10 to 15 minute break, maybe even shorter, honestly. Now that these are matches, and you've guessed correctly, this is a very good shout by you. Takes knight d4 played by Hikaru, and now Wesley has a choice, because as you're absolutely right. Like some position like this, you definitely pick black here.
Yeah, this is just great.
It's a very, very pleasant endgame with zero risk. But
you could
push for more.
Was a blunder, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I think knight h5 was. You can play something restrained here, like rook e1 or bishop e3 or something. Yeah. I'm pretty sure black is not better yet, but black definitely is at least a little bit better now. I don't know how much, but at least a little bit better for sure.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, just again, move 17, black is better. Like, not what you want with white anyway.
No, absolutely not. No, we'll see what's what here, because once again, it's an interesting decision for Wesley, because
how he feels.
Yeah. Keeping the queens on here is definitely the more ambitious approach. Yeah. But that endgame, like there's nothing really to object about if you just take on f3.
It's tempting to play it safe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be an interesting little bit of a subplot, just how well he feels. He's doing here.
Yeah.
And thanks very much for the raid, Fiona. And I watched your stream for a bit earlier. Hope you had a nice stream, and welcome to all the Fiona viewers. We're doing a little, a light bit of Simon replacement here.
Yeah. Oh, knight d4.
I would like, for me personally, it would be a very simple decision to keep the queens on, but I just get very easily bored in endgames. So like, I probably should not be used as an example. I just like playing positions where I have attacking chances.
Yeah.
So
But
I know what I would have chosen by this point already. I'm pretty sure. Like it wouldn't even have taken me this long.
already thinking, Wesley, yeah, I mean, he's obviously weighing up, yeah.
hmm And
So
we are being informed that engines really like this for black, but this is not a
it's
surprising.
obvious. I mean,
Yeah, like it's not a surprising statement at all.
yeah,
Of
yeah,
course, black is doing very well. The
yeah.
question is, do you trade queens? And if not, people are suggesting maybe queen g7 is a decent move as well.
But
I guess queen
while we are,
g7,
while,
knight a2, bishop
okay,
e6 or something.
yeah. While we are talking about, I mean, the American duel, how can you explain the transformation of Hikaru's style from when he was starting with the King's Indian and all this sacrificial stuff and everything, dragons, to the Berlin and Queen's Gambit declined guy playing technical chess and everything?
I think it just becomes difficult to defend that perimeter against really high standard opposition, and he just chose to be practical about things.
But it's also a change of style. I mean, he's playing
Absolutely,
like,
yeah, and
yeah,
I think for all of us as lovers of exciting attacking chess, it was a sad day when he switched from the King's Indian to Queen's Gambit declined
yeah.
and all of these things, but it's been working for him. So
Oh yeah,
it's
definitely.
I think it's an understandable decision. It's once you start playing, I mean, for a while he was actually playing the King's Indians and the Sicilians against the absolutely very best in the world. But I mean, clearly you're taking just vastly more risks if you do that. So at some point he clearly chose he decided that the risk reward ratio there didn't favor him.
So you think it was more a question of the openings rather than being guided by his change in style, or so you mean he changed the openings, and as a result of the changed openings, he changed the style?
I think it went that yeah. I don't think he became a technical non-attacking player overnight. I think he still like if you watch his games, if people even today give him an option of giving mate,
Yeah, yeah.
he will do it with great flair. He will enjoy the opportunity to just absolutely destroy his opponent in some kind of a messy tactical game, even now. It's just that I think at some point he stopped believing this was his best course of action opening wise.
I
So
see.
I think the openings drove the style change, not the style change drove
Okay,
the
okay,
opening.
okay,
That
okay.
would be my guess, but I don't really know. And thanks very much for the gift, Move 11, and welcome to King's Gambit 75. Yeah, takes knight g3. We did guess correctly, queen d6 and then
Yeah.
f5, and takes knight g3 being played. And because there is this battery on the c7 h2 diagonal, uh, Wesley is not really worried about the trade of the bishop. Like d bishop takes c4, queen e3. I think he will quite happily play g6, g5 here. And once again, this is just I will just show this on the board. This is unfortunately for white never going to be an option. The knight on g3 is actually completely pinned. You could play rook takes a7. I think in this position it doesn't lose to anything, but I think black just ignores it. I think black is not really even particularly worried about this, although it's a bit annoying. I wanted to say I want to play rook a8, but you have to calculate rook takes b7. And a7 pawn is not that important. The b7 pawn starts becoming important
Yeah,
because
because you
then,
can second c7
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
then the rook actually starts, playing a part. There's also bishop b6. We are being told
Yeah.
at some point. I don't know where exactly. Are we actually giving up the pawn on h6 with check? I doubt that, right? We can't really do this here because that also allows knight takes e4 and then bishop b3. That doesn't sound
Yeah,
right.
no, this is not good.
Yeah, so up to queen e3, it's all on the board, so we'll see what Wesley means. I mean, g5 is by far the most obvious move in the position, but maybe he wants something else.
But what else? I mean, put something on f4, you cannot. So, I mean, what else?
Yeah, and then honestly, after g5, apart from rook takes a7, there is really not very much you can even suggest for white. Because if you do give black a couple of moves here, let's say if you allow, I don't even want to talk about bishop takes c2 being a threat, and it is actually a threat. But even if, let's say, if you allow bishop g6 and then rook a8, you are just going to get mated on the king side at some point.
It's overwhelming, yeah.
Yeah, so you have to at least have something to suffer for here.
Yeah.
So it's
I
a
must take some.
concept. It's
Yeah.
a concept that my coach, my first ever coach introduced, I think, and that stuck with me over the years. That if you don't like your position, this is actually, a useful time to start considering some strange-looking pawn grabs,
Yeah.
because that at least, it gives you something to return later,
Yeah.
to force some trades, for instance. Because if you're much worse and it's also an equal material position, you can never really liquidate into some kind of an endgame, because by sacrificing something, or you can, but it will not really be working
Not
particularly
favor
well.
you.
Yeah, so here I think rook a7, I would be very, very interested in that move as white, because if it doesn't lose, at least it gives us something to look forward to.
Yeah. I mean, but come on, the whole poison pawn variation was based on that concept. You take something, you
Yeah,
suffer.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, you
And
you
then
you 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 do need to have, if you're going to be under constant threat of getting mated for the next 20 moves, at least you should have something to show
yeah,
for it.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, bishop b6, it keeps on popping up, but you cannot really allow queen takes h6 with check. I'm pretty sure you have to defend against that threat, guys.
No, but maybe there's. I mean, I don't know if they're seeing any. I mean, but 94 is coming next, so it's not like you have queen g3 or rook f2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's no, I don't think it's a workable solution. You could maybe make an argument for something like this, just giving the pawn on h6 up, but maybe creating a threat rook takes f2 or something. Wesley goes h5, which is actually
Yeah, h5.
very clever,
Yeah,
very clever. He is saying that queen h6 check is not really a threat. He is fine allowing it. And he is, at least in some positions. In particular, I think the one position where he really, really needs this resource is this one, where we are attacking the knight on g3, and it can really not go anywhere at all because of queen h2 mate. And Hikaru instantly goes c4 in reply, to which Wesley also instantly goes king h7, g8, which is an interesting sequence. None of those two moves look particularly forced to me, but I guess Hikaru was expecting h5. And
yeah. I saw h5 rather quickly, but I couldn't kind of figure out what's going on. But then
this is why he played c4. This is smart.
to get rid of
He is
the
trying to disrupt the battery and to have knight takes c4. And now I think he will have to play f4, actually. And he will still be struggling for equality. But that's an improvement, because at least you get to trade one of the two bishops for this knight on g3. I guess you play queen e6, knight e4. You can take even, I think, with the pawn, and then you try to get the rook over to d3.
Yeah.
It's still not very great.
But I mean, he has some positives to look forward to. I mean, he has a safer king, at least for now. And then if he gets the bishop out to the long diagonal, he can kind of be happy.
Yeah, and bishop d2 was suggested in chat instead of f4, but I think it's a little bit too optimistic not to go after that bishop immediately. In particular, even something like bishop c2, you might have real occasion to regret not taking that bishop when it was still possible, because you might never chase it down again. Like, it might survive. So f4 played, the queen could go to other squares, but e6 does look like the most natural one, honestly, because it protects all the pawns that it needs to be protecting. But yeah, I think this is an improvement, and you have to wonder if after c4, Wesley had something stronger here. Of course, the big reason why you can play c4 is that h4 is not yet a threat.
Yeah.
Because of the check. But maybe we could have made an argument for something like rook a8 here or something. I don't know. It's all in the past anyway. Wesley chose e7 and not e6 here, and they blitzed out all of this entire sequence. I think probably I missed rook. Yeah, I definitely missed rook
a4. Yeah.
And this is why he chose e7, because if you go for this, now after rook a4, it's actually quite awkward to defend. If you go rook fe8, you allow f5.
F5 is,
yeah, and if you go rook a8, you have to give up the pawn on a7. So Wesley instead goes for queen e7, rook f5. And yeah, this looks like white probably is going to be fine after after the trades. Yeah, this is not going to be too bad for white at all.
No, but I mean, you have at least I have the impression that black could have gotten more out of the position.
So I really felt somewhere around maybe here that black should be better. And it seems to me that Hikaru now will survive this with really very few difficulties. So probably something has not. Rook is black potentially worse here? I really underestimated rook e7 because I thought bishop b6 was strong, but we have bishop b3.
Yeah, bishop b3.
And then
Still, but okay, rook b5. But no, but the king and
but
the
white king is a lot safer than the black
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
So it's curious. This might actually require some precision from Wesley. Like if you go rook d5, I will take on b6. I will take on b7. We are pawn up now, and
Yeah.
we want rook e1, rook e7. I don't know if this is a draw.
No, this is dangerous.
This is a huge turnaround, actually. Very nicely done by Hikaru, spotting the c4, c5 idea so quickly.
Yeah. No, I mean the resilience and the resourcefulness from his younger years is still there. I mean,
Absolutely.
Maybe the style has changed, but when he needs to get out of trouble, he's still very tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, and yesterday was such a prime example of that as well. Like that position that he ended up winning on demand against MVL in the second Blitz game.
Yeah.
He just, it was probably just completely lost, but he kept on creating little resources, asking little questions, and eventually MVL collapsed. And here, I think rook fd1 is like f5 looks extremely attractive, but I think after f5 he's planning just to go rook f8 to trade one pair, and that should be a draw.
And f6 is not an issue.
F6, I think we go rook f7. This should be fine, I think.
Maybe.
I think this should be
now
fine.
Now d1 maybe or something.
D1 I was going to
take. Maybe take on f6.
I take and go king f7 and.
Okay.
And I'm better suddenly. So,
No, this is not good. No.
Yeah, and all of this. I'm very curious why Hikaru did not try playing rook d1 here, because in this position I'm not entirely sure how easy it is to. Maybe he just did not believe he has anything at all here. Maybe he thought this was just a draw, which it probably is.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, but as black, I would be a lot more worried about this than I would be about what they're going to have on the board. Because here I think black is reasonably untroubled.
Yeah, but this check now it's a draw. Yeah.
No, white of course is never worse. It's not like I'm not suggesting Hikaru is running any risks whatsoever here, but I think it's just a draw. Honestly, I think the game is about to conclude. Yeah, we already have one repetition, and I assume we'll have more in a second. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, Handsome Devil, about MVL losing that game and not Hikaru winning it. I think MVL losing it was the bigger part of the two. But Hikaru also played very, very well from a certain point when a lot of people, I think, would have just been completely dispirited, losing the first one and then getting completely outplayed with white. A lot of people would have not really would not have been looking for chances as much as Hikaru was looking for them. And once he got chances, he exploited them superbly. So I think it was definitely a combination of both. This Hikaru's thinking here, but I'm pretty sure there will be a repetition. Yeah. And second game of Nepomniachtchi Carlsen started. So we're going to switch to that because the other game was drawn.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, Accelerated Dragon by Magnus, something I think that he's played over the years, but not a lot. So,
and it's been quite a while since he played it last. So,
yeah, I mean, he used to play the Pure Dragon, right? This is not the Pure Dragon, at least not yet. It might become a Pure Dragon.
Might depend. Okay, now?
Well, now it's and I think that currently the most fashionable move in this position is rook e8, right? And also, if we want to go down that particular rabbit hole, this is a move that Daniel Dubov made quite a lot, and they definitely work together quite a lot. But Magnus actually switches to the Pure Dragon by playing d6 here.
Yeah.
And now after f3, we have, one of the absolute main theoretical positions of the dragon. If black plays bishop d7, rook c8, which he doesn't have to, but you still kind of expect that to happen.
But currently, I think these knight d4, b5, a5 lines are more kind of solid, or I mean, at least trustworthy.
Yeah. There's also this, right? You can also go for these lines.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. That's kind of theoretically okayish, I think, for black.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be fine the last time I checked, but the last time I checked was maybe like 20 years ago. So you should not really be listening to my opinion on this.
Yeah. No, but I remember there was a long theory here. When you go a3, long castle, black sacrifices b4, knight d5, take on g7, take on b4, and there was some long theory where white was supposed to be okay. But then somehow white's player stopped going for this. So okay, h3, he changed his mind.
And there's a question from Yeras: what's the difference between the pure dragon and the accelerated? So the pure dragon starts with this move order, when the pawn is on d6, basically from move 2. And the accelerated dragon, which is something that Magnus, well, he tried playing the Sveshnikov, I assume, but Jan was having none of it. The difference is, because the pawn is still on d7, black definitely has additional options here. Rook e8, as I mentioned, is one of them. Queen a5 is definitely a move you can try making in this position. a5 used to be a very, very serious move in this position. So you do have sort of additional options compared to the absolute dragon main lines when you start with knight c6.
But then, of course, the drawback is, okay, not in this move order, but the drawback is it allows the Marozzi bind. So
yeah,
when you go
normally, if we're talking about the pure accelerated, it starts with this move order,
G6,
and then you do allow c4, and that's not to everybody to not everybody's cup of tea. But the way they got there was via the kind of threatened Sveshnikov, to which Jan said no Sveshnikov today, and now the Marozzi bind is no longer really on the table, and this is what they have right now. Who named the dragon and why? That's actually something that is reasonably well known. This pawn structure is supposed to be sort of vaguely dragon-shaped, at least in the eyes of the people who were doing the naming. This is like the head and the tail of the dragon, and
wasn't it the constellation?
I thought it was possibly the constellation, but I definitely know it was, I think, to do with the shape of the black structure.
Yeah. I mean, I've read both explanations, so I'm not quite sure which one it is. But I mean, whether it's the constellation or the actual.
Yeah, and I think you are correct about the constellation, but I think we got parts of the answer right. I'm pretty sure the pawn structure is supposed to resemble the constellation.
Yeah.
What they have on the board right now should be fine for black.
This was Anand Kasparov, like that game in Linares where, I mean, when Anand went for the dragon, but then went h3 instead of f3, it was exactly the same move order. And then, okay, Kasparov went for this knight f5 b6, and I think ever since then, I remember it was a popular plan, like go bishop c4 and then h3 short castle for white. But then after knight f5 b6 that Kasparov played in that game, I think it kind of fell out of fashion for a very long time.
Yeah, it doesn't really look very threatening, and I mean, you probably play something like rook e1, bishop b7, bishop g5 or something, and you hope that maybe one day you can play knight d5 and get that structure on the board. But black obviously will have something to say about that. Queen d2 played by Jan, which is curious. Kind of implies he will play f3 next move. And generally with the pawn on h3, you're not as happy playing f3 later, because you do, generate some kind of holes in your structure on the king side. But I guess in this particular case, it's going to be extremely difficult to exploit, so we don't really mind that much.
No, but it's, of course, white is super solid. So I mean, even allowing knight b3, a b3, and
white is not going to be in any kind of trouble, of course, unless he overpushes at some point.
And the other game finished in a draw, right?
The Anand Kasparov game?
No, that one, they did finish in a draw, but the Nakamura, so
they repeated rook e7. This is why I'm not returning to it. That game is over.
Okay.
Bishop b7, f3 played. Yeah, black should be fine, but you still have to choose what to do here. To my eyes, like the attractive plan here would be to push for some kind of e5 followed by g5, but you probably have to prepare it a little bit too hard. Currently, e5 knight db5 doesn't look great, so you would have to maybe include a6, and then white gets to play rook a d1, and all of this becomes much harder to realize. So you probably just play kind of a normal dragon style. You go rook c8, rook e8, and just sit for now.
Yeah, take on b3 at some point. Obviously.
Yeah, at some point you take, but you are not in any hurry to do it immediately because the bishop really isn't going anywhere. It's just there for you to take eventually.
But I kind of vaguely remember that Kasparov started pushing e5, f5, something on the king side in that game. I can't recall exactly right now, but I think he was becoming aggressive on the king side in that game, but just can't remember now.
Yeah, it's very hazy for me as well. I'm not entirely sure how they continued. Will be interesting to see what Magnus chooses here. Like there's definitely some default options here, and he chooses one of them. Rook c8 is like there are very few Sicilian positions where you're not threatened when you're not being threatened by anything where Rook c8 is a mistake. So you feel very safe just playing Rook c8 here, putting the rook on the semi-open file, but.
Knight c4. I'm introducing knight c4.
Yeah. Also, yeah. If you want to trade this knight for this bishop, you probably actually want to do it on the c4 square so that you don't give white the 8 takes b3 move, which the rook on a1 will actually have something to do suddenly. And thanks very much for the raid, Ray, and I hope your stream went okay. And welcome to all the Ray viewers. Rook a1 is a default move for white here, I assume. I don't think we are actually spending a tempo trying to stop knight c4. There's no comfortable way to stop it anyway. Or bishop h6, one of those two.
Yeah. Some equal dragon position, but I mean these tend to kind of, I mean, I'm pretty sure you know this. Again, I don't remember where I've read it. Like the longer the game goes in the Sicilian, black's chances are getting higher. But obviously, white is too solid here to run any risks. Normally, that goes for these f4, g4 stuff, and then the attack doesn't go through, and then black is better, in the end game or later, But here, should be fine. Even though there was a recent Duda win, I think, against, I mean, maybe in these structures or similar structures when he beat somebody, like in a long end game, like equal.
Yeah, I'm wondering, bishop h6, queen h6, is he actually intending to play e5 now? Probably not. It's probably a little bit too ambitious, right? But like it sort of indicates to me that he might be considering it, because with the queen on h6, we are no longer worried about knight db5, because for that one split second, the pawn on d6 is not hanging. So we are sort of forcing white to go knight d2, and now we can entertain the idea of pushing d6, d5, maybe even immediately. And yeah, that's what he does. That's very, very interesting. I would be kind of worried about knight f5, at least for a second, but it doesn't really look like there's not enough attackers.
No pieces.
Yeah, there are. The king side is completely, there's nobody there for white to join the queen on h6. So I think you do end up going knight d2 here. I don't think there is much choice. And yeah, it's will be interesting to see how Magnus continues, because the issue for him is obviously before playing d5, he would like to trade the bishop first. But if you trade the bishop, you have, oops, sorry, that's a misclick.
Yeah, then a7 is king,
Yeah, you have to spend the tempo on defending the a7 pawn. He goes b6, b5 for now. I was wondering about that. Yeah, that generates a very annoying idea of b5, b4. And also, of course, you cannot take on b5 because of queen b6 check. And that's one use you get out of provoking f3.
So what about knight g3 and trying to pile up something there?
Knight g3, I guess we go b4. Where does the knight go? d1, e3?
Oh,
knight d5. Knight d5. Okay, now we have, like, knight b3 might actually lose to knight f5 now, right?
Yeah, knight f3, yeah.
I mean, I have knight h5. Maybe I don't resign, but it's kind of scary.
Yeah,
I don't really.
Yeah,
it doesn't really look very safe. So I would like to avoid that. So let me take on d5 with maybe bishop.
Yeah, take with bishop.
Yeah, but then
I mean, this is all very.
I mean, I can probably already take on c2, because I don't think I'm getting mated on the king side here.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping for knight d5, maybe knight e4, f4, something like that. This is just going va-bank, but f4 or something like that. But I don't know if it works. But I mean, okay, just easy to sacrifice other people's pieces.
Very much so. I think like the way to try and control the damage here a little bit would be to play a3, but specifically after a3. Now that we have queen b6 check ideas, we can actually push d5 now. Also, yeah, the a7 is not hanging because we were forced to take with the c pawn. which is a huge difference, of course. Yeah, Magnus, I think, is really trying to. He's not trying to have a safe game with black here. He is trying to
take over, yeah.
To pile some more pressure onto Jan and see if maybe he can win a black game as well.
Yeah, that would be huge.
Yeah, that would be obviously a very big development.
So what do you do here? I mean, maybe knight d1.
I'm not sure. I'm kind of unhappy about this for white.
Knight
I'm starting to like this more and more for black.
No, but a typical Sicilian. I mean, when white is passive, black easily can take over, but still, again.
Yeah, but like I just don't know which move I'm supposed to make here with white. Like we cannot really properly fight for the d5 square, and like there's even like significant tactical issues with protecting the pawn on c2. So yeah. Is bishop d5 possible? It is possible, but let's say I just take on d5, and this is a pawn sacrifice. This is you genuinely. I think you lose the pawn on c2 to b5 before next move. So yeah, you can drop the queen back to e3, but once again, like how are we dealing with the idea of b4? Maybe we go knight d1 here, and there's the pawn on a7 is hanging, but. I mean, black can definitely spend the tempo here, stabilizing, and then push for d5. Also, I mean, what do you even take with? C takes b3 looks ugly, and if you take a takes b3, we can take on c2.
Yeah, take on a7, and then.
I mean, I always pick black in a position like.
Yeah.
Black is definitely doing very, very well here.
No, the knight on d1 is. I mean, you need still more time to move it to e3 and so on, but. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, not a very pleasant position for white. Honestly, it might still be fine, but I would definitely prefer by this point. I would prefer to have the black pieces here.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes in these positions, sometimes it's. I mean, desperate attacks on the king side sometimes work, but.
Yeah, I'm also beginning to think about like let's just open the F file and hope something sticks, but I just don't think it sticks. Like
it's
by
too
doing
loose.
This, you'll probably just destroy your position completely and everything collapses.
No, this is just too loose. At some point, maybe knight on g3 first, and then somehow maybe.
Knight g3 before, and then knight somewhere.
Knight e2 maybe.
Yeah, knight b3. CB,
but it's ugly, but you're just trying for some.
Yeah, you're trying for cheapos,
cheapos.
And these things never really end up working. Like they also black doesn't even have to show any particular imagination to.
No, not that quickly, maybe, but well, maybe still after d5. Rook d1, but
d5 rook d1, but we have queen b6 check.
Queen b6 check.
It starts looking extremely risky for white, and I think it's really no surprise at all that Jan has been thinking for quite some time. I mean, considering his normal speed of play, he's been in the tank for a very, very long time here already, and. Clearly, nothing is particularly attractive to him, or he would have played something. Yeah. 5 minutes so far, we're being told, and by his standards, that's
a lot.
That's like a half an hour in the tank in a classical game or something.
1/3 of his time, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can drop the queen to d2, but that's nothing great to.
Yeah, maybe you kind of cut your loss with something like queen d2. He ends up playing a3, which is something we thought was possible. But yeah, that's now a very comfortable position for black. You play either d5 immediately, or you can include queen b6 check for now. But I guess that's a sensible option. If you imagine some kind of a position like this, if white gets some kind of a setup with b4 and knight c3, he's not really running too many risks.
Oh, but it's just again very, very sad. Yeah.
It's not very exciting, but it's probably fine for Jan. Yeah, d5 played. We'll see what transpires. And game 2 in the So Nakamura match has begun with them blitzing out some very, very topical Italian things. I think this is the line that MVL and Hikaru were discussing the whole day yesterday, right? I'm pretty
Nakamura played this several times in the Skilling Open. Not just against Nakamura, Bashir, but against other people, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think I personally played b3 against him in this position.
Yeah, b3 and d4, but I'm not sure if it was this position.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe actually it went.
After knight f1.
Knight f1. He played bishop b6 against me, I think. He played bishop b6 against me, and I played b3 here.
Yeah, and then,
which was I ended up having a very nice position out of the opening, but I'm not sure how much. Actually, no, it went. I think it went like h3, bishop b6, b3. Yeah, because knight was on d2, it went to c4 later.
Okay.
But yeah, Hikaru has had a lot of Italians
yeah.
so far in this tournament. Really,
knight h7 is kind of he never tried before. Knight h7 he hasn't played before. Okay,
yeah,
this
maybe not in this setup, yeah, but it's clearly something he's looked at.
Yeah.
Seems, I mean, knight h7 g5 has been a reasonable maneuver for a very, very long time. It's kind of normal to do it in all kinds of Spanish and Italian positions. Simon's on a bit of a break, quantizator. We apologize for the inadequate amount of Simons currently streaming on the channel, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, how do you navigate all these Italian move orders? I mean, it's a mess to me.
I don't. I just ignore it. I play something with white, and I hope I'm not doing too badly.
And what about with black? I mean, you also with black you can play a6, a5.
Yeah. No, for me, the much bigger problem always has been doing it with black, because I just found it very, very difficult to motivate myself to learn all the move orders. But then you just don't equalize.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of annoying not to equalize against the Italian, but you just don't equalize if you don't know what you're doing these days.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's a bit of a problem for me.
Yeah. I find it very confusing. I mean, just a6, a5 directly, h6, no h6, knight e7, knight g6, no knight e7, knight g6.
I remember one of the warmest memories of recent times was when I played the I think it was the Baden-Baden round robin last year, where I got invited to play in a super tournament, and Peter Lecco was there, I think, doing commentary.
Yeah.
And one evening, I think after the tournament was finished, we had dinner, a whole bunch of us with Peter as well. And at some point, we got Peter talking about his files on the Italian. And
can you imagine?
It was just the most enjoyable conversation ever, because he was surrounded by people who, I wouldn't say I don't know anything about the opening, but I have a very, laissez-faire approach to the Italian. Like, I feel like, my life probably has bigger problems than learning all the move orders. And he was sitting there saying, I finally ordered it into 73 different files. And it's very difficult to remember 73 files. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, this sounds like a problem, and I don't know if I would be ready to do that. And that's probably why I never did that. But it's just, it's just such a different approach to these things compared to, for instance, what I do. That that was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah.
And I mean, with Peter, you actually trust him for that those 73 files never actually show the same position. He's worked out all the transpositions, and the transpositions are sorted out into separate files. So, like, if I have 73 files on a certain openings, on a certain opening, probably like 67 of them are doubles, which can be deleted because they're exactly the same file, right? But in his case, I'm pretty sure they are actually different files.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he's known to be very professional in this approach to openings and everything else. So yeah, I believe that 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and
But remembering and everything, and
yeah, I have no
then-
idea. I have no idea how he manages, honestly.
Yeah,
I would not want to be in his shoes at all in that respect.
but you are every game you play with black. You are in his shoes. You have to play something.
Sort of, yeah, but not
Depends
sort of, but not entirely.
on
Anyway, after d4, Hikaru takes finally some time to think and ends up allowing the straight on c6 and c takes d4. And strategically, this is kind of risky for black. If you allow white to play bishop b3, let's say rook c1, in particular followed by f3 to stabilize everything, and then the pawn on g5 will start becoming a bit of an issue. The pawn on c6 is always going to be a bit of an issue. But black probably should be able to develop some kind of play very early on. One source of counterplay black often has here is something like a4, and then perhaps even something like rook a5, b5. Once the bishop gets to e3, the pawn on b2 starts feeling a little bit unsafe. So you can definitely start trying to put some pressure on it by piling up on the b file. But it will be an interesting decision here by Hikaru. I'm wondering what he chooses. There is also maybe the idea of playing d5 with the intention of meeting e5 with c5, but you might get mated. The issue with that is that you might get mated, which is probably not ideal.
Can you play g6, straight queens, take on d4, something like
Yeah,
that?
I'm probably not. I'm trying not to trade queens here. I'm trying to give mate as much as possible. This actually does look like mate now.
Yeah, now, yeah.
This actually genuinely looks like it might be
Yeah,
mate.
now it is made, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll leave Hikaru with this decision and revisit our dragon, in which after ed5, knight d5, Jan played king h1, which I think is a very sensible choice, sidestepping all the tactics with queen b6. It was probably going to be a required move anyway. So queen b6, he goes knight e4. Magnus very understandably decides not to allow knight g5. And now Jan goes rook fc1. Yeah, this is not going to be a very pleasant game for him, I feel. Already, like, you can play queen e3 here, and no, I guess that's not very good because there's knight d6 in the end, winning the fight for the c file, and then white is completely fine. So you have to be more precise than that.
Yeah, but it still looks very good for black. I mean, great Sicilian.
Yeah, definitely a very nice position. The question is how you treat it. Thanks very much for the sub, G Brode. Welcome to the balloon party.
What's a balloon party?
It's a kind of an inside joke in my channel.
Okay.
It's not a particularly cheerful party. Is basically the gist of the joke. Is it's not much fun.
Okay. So what do you do here with black? How do you continue?
I'm not
do you
sure.
trade all the rooks?
I was wondering. Yeah, there's definitely an argument for just trying to get everything, all the rooks off the board. And if white sort of complies and does something like this, maybe you're. But actually, you're not better here because knight comes to c5. Yeah, that's a very stable construction. Knight e7, the move that Magnus made, was also something I was going to mention. Perhaps rerouting it to f5. Also, maybe in some positions you actually might be interested in the idea of taking on e4, so that white cannot really establish that beachhead on c5.
But also some bishop e4 may be a threat at some point. Yeah, I mean, bishop e4 and then just the pawn on e4 would be weak. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like you definitely leave yourself the option of playing bishop takes e4 at some point. Jan takes on c8. I assume we take with the rook because why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we take with the rook?
Now white goes for the old rook.
Yeah, and white actually says I'm quite happy trading all the rooks here. Yeah, I think Jan probably holds this if he doesn't make too many mistakes because the king on h1 is quite safe and there's probably not. Although I mean, against Magnus, these assumptions are never very very safe. You know, it could be fine, but also not.
For now, yeah, bishop e4 now. This is what I was going to say. Bishop e4 and that pawn is weak.
Yeah. Before, I assume there's no reason to take on c8 first.
Oh, it takes on
and
e4.
Yeah, so f4. Yeah, this is going to be an endgame you will have to play. Like you can maybe even just play king f7.
Queen c6.
Or queen c6 first. Or also, no, before you cannot do because of queen c4 check. I was going to say there's definitely some positional merit to trying to do this to stop the knight from coming to c3.
Yeah.
Like if you include b4 and a4, black definitely achieved something. But there is an issue that it allows queen c4 check.
Yeah.
We'll see what Magnus does. Yeah. He has a little bit of something. I assume you don't actually win this position against the computer, so to speak, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah, but he doesn't play a computer, so
yeah, that's completely irrelevant. And rook d8, as is being suggested, is actually not stupid at all. Also, kind of cutting off all the squares. It's a little bit weird to leave the queen on h6 unchallenged, but maybe black actually has his own threats with like queen f2 potentially. Maybe you can make an argument for rook d8. I don't know if I like allowing knight c3 with some jumping possibilities. I think Magnus, he has become a lot. I think he at some point, maybe we had that conversation on air when we were doing Chessable Masters, Alex. But if we haven't, it's like a pet theory of mine that Magnus actually at some point made a conscious effort to sort of retool his game to play sharper.
I think you mentioned that back then. Starting with the Sveshnikov and the Caruana.
Yeah. Starting specifically, I think, as slightly earlier even than the Caruana match, to prepare for the Caruana match, which he expected to be full of sharp positions. But I think his default setting in this position is still to trade, as many pieces as possible because, endgames are definitely slightly better for black. Pawn endgame is just straight up winning for black here because of
knight endgame was also very
knight ending also close to winning, I assume, if all the heavy pieces come off the board. So I think his default setting is just rook takes c1 and then go from there. But he might be looking at other things as well. Probably is looking at other things.
Yeah.
We'll see. And in the meantime, Wesley is, it does look much better for Wesley here because it's just very difficult. I think Hikaru, if Hikaru could play both a4 and c5, he would be reasonably happy with life. But after c5, Wesley instantly played a4 himself, making sure that there's this pawn on a5, which is, first of all, you can actually in some positions put some pressure on it. If the rook leaves the a8 square, we can go bishop c3, queen d2. In fact, we probably do play bishop c3, queen d2 against most things. And then black has to kind of care about the pawn on a5 quite a bit. And, the usual ways for black to equalize in these types of positions aren't really readily available. I think c4, I think Hikaru is hoping that maybe something like this works for him to, generate at least some activity. But honestly, even this position after bishop d4, you are not going to be enjoying it very much. Even having achieved all that, you are probably still struggling to equalize. And bishop c3 is not forced. You can go rook c1 first. You can go, you can try many things. No, rook c1, queen f6 though. Queen f6 has been. You have to pay attention to the threat of queen f6.
Queen c2. I mean, many moves.
Yeah, those moves definitely do exist. Yeah, like both queen e2 and queen c2 make a decent amount of sense. But bishop c3, I think, is by far the most obvious move in the position. Just stopping queen f6, like putting a hard stop to the idea of queen f6.
Yeah.
And perhaps playing bishop d4 later if you want to.
Yeah, looks nice. I mean, I've noticed this. Hikaru plays these a lot, like these Italians, but very often he ends up kind of worse out of the opening or messes up something. So it's maybe confusing even for him. I mean, I don't know, but just looking at his games, because he changes his line of choice against the Italian quite often, and maybe he just messes up his preparation. I don't know. I mean, because he obviously prepared knight h7, knight g5, right?
Yeah, that was played very, very quickly.
After that,
there's no way he did not prepare that.
Yeah, and soon afterwards, I mean, after some natural moves by white, he's worse. So what's going on?
I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, it's hard to say because, you're absolutely correct. This should be, his prep as much as it is Wesley's, or maybe more than it is Wesley's. But I don't think he has much of a reason to be happy with the outcome. I mean, it's not unplayable, but I'm pretty sure white is better. Queen f3 played by Wesley, stopping queen f6 in a different fashion, and Hikaru, for now, puts the rook on the open file here with rook b8, perhaps indicating he might be playing bishop c5 at some point. Maybe, some rook b3 ideas. The bishop on c3 will cover all of that very comfortably, though.
Yeah, that pawn on c4 is a liability, definitely. I mean, not that easy to defend.
Yeah, and they're reasonably close on the clock, so that's
Yeah, still a lot of time.
Still a lot of time. In the other one, as expected, Magnus did take the rooks off, and they are now playing this position where Magnus is continuing to offer exchanges even after the rooks came off. As you can see, he is now offering Jan a queen trade. I wonder if you can actually accept it and play queen h6 and just try to make a draw by force. Whoa,
Yeah.
Jan played queen c7 is also a very, very topical idea here, which actually wins the a6 pawn. Maybe this was a blunder by Magnus.
What's the idea?
Well, I mean, he is just worse now, maybe a lot worse. It's interesting that Jan goes knight c7 instantly, not even spending like half a second on the idea of knight c5.
Maybe knight c5, knight c4, but still.
There's that's I guess after knight c5, knight c5, knight c4, maybe like a forced draw, something like this, yeah.
Yeah, so.
And the repetition. So there's definitely a reason for him not to do that. I'm guessing black still holds because of just how much more active his king is. But if white ever, gets going with b3 plans, it could become tricky.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a genuine miss by Magnus or if he assessed this knight ending as being good. Mystifying a little bit, because you definitely aren't obliged to go knight e7 here.
No.
Yeah, it would be interesting if, after all of our, extolling the virtues of Magnus as an endgame player, if he ends up losing, a slightly worse, a slightly better endgame with zero risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks just straight up bad for black now.
I mean,
but you still have to win this position, though.
Yeah, theoretically speaking, I mean, he could argue that he's not really a pawn down because it's only one passed pawn on the queen side for white and potentially one passed pawn on the king side for black, because these extra pawns.
Yeah, I think we never allow g4. I think we play king f3 for now and we go from there.
Yeah,
I think allowing g4 would be a mistake.
But then how do you make progress?
Yeah, exactly. That's the question. So we get here, and the question is, do we have anything productive to do? In particular, like if you play something like knight d5, you're definitely inviting a lot of potential pawn trades with this operation, and black definitely is, actively looking for ways to get more pawns off the board here.
Yeah.
I'm still not convinced this is a draw after something like knight e7 and then knight g6. It might not be a draw anyway, but black is getting sort of closer to where draws become feasible, and knight d5 played. So we'll see if Magnus actually. Magnus does go for it, because you really have to start getting material off the board.
Yeah.
Knight e7 check played, king d6. Yeah, you sadly you cannot play a5 because the knight actually gets back there just in time.
Yeah.
Although, like, even this, how happy are you having to defend this position with black?
No, this reminds me of your game with Anand. Yeah.
Please no. Please no.
Sorry.
This probably is a draw, though. The one I played against Vishy wasn't a draw. This probably is a draw, though, I assume. But yeah, why do that when you can play knight g6 instead?
No, of course.
There's absolutely no reason. I have a feeling this actually ends up being lost, because black never actually gets rid of the g2 pawn. That's the biggest issue for Magnus here, that the g2 pawn survives in most cases. And then white ends up distracting a lot of the black forces with the passer on the a file, picks up the e5 and f4 pawns, and then the g pawn starts running up the board. Yeah, this is trouble. And also, this is just so completely self-inflicted.
Yeah.
Magnus will not be happy about it if he loses this game.
But then if he doesn't, then okay.
Yeah, if he doesn't, he will feel that, well, no real reason. Yeah, no real reason to be happy about it from his viewpoint, but he will know that, it will tilt Jan like beyond belief. If Jan ends up not winning this, Jan will be so tilted. That it will make it difficult for him to play further down the line. Yeah, this is a good try actually. Knight f6, 95 here. I'm guessing perhaps this is the pawn he wants. Although, like 95, I think you lose this position. I don't think it's kind of close, but not close enough. I think you end up losing this position quite comfortably. So probably, yeah. So I think he has to take on b4, maybe even in this version. And then if you take on f4, this actually wins either this guy or this guy, either with this check or this check.
That's nice.
But of course, king takes f4 is not a move you are in any way obliged to make. You can go knight g6.
Knight g6.
Yeah, you go knight g6, and I assume you win because unless something like this miraculously holds.
And knight g2 and king
and then king c5. This actually does hold. Whoa. Hang up.
Yeah.
Hang up.
That's really nice. Yeah, if it does.
Yeah, we're being informed that Sese thinks this is completely winning. Once again, not a surprise, but it's not really about what Sese thinks. It's about playing this precisely. And you, as we're showing, there's definitely still a way for white to go wrong. Yeah, I assume this position is winning for white somehow. You can play, I don't know. Once again, I've given a couple of normal moves and they don't win. So I don't know what wins. I suspect maybe it's actually smart to include knight c4 check straight away. But he hasn't done that. He's taken. Yeah, let's see how the game progresses, because Jan is extremely strong in this kind of really precise short calculations. Yeah, I think this is a draw now. Hang on a second. Like I genuinely think this is a draw now after knight g6, 95. I'm very confused by this.
Maybe he missed that.
He was on a minute though. He like maybe this is what's happening here, because he's playing this on a minute, and it's maybe understandable that he can miss some details.
Yeah. I mean, this idea with the sacrifice,
Yeah, this just genuinely looks like black goes 93, knight g2 against any move, right?
Yeah. That's what.
Yeah, that's just a draw.
Wow.
So yeah, like the Sese evaluation, unfortunately, is not very relevant here, because on a minute you definitely can miscalculate. But yeah, that's a huge miss by.
I mean, not a great game for either.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important game in the context of the match. But yeah, neither of them played it particularly well. I will definitely.
Yeah. But Carlsen is the happier one, still leading.
Whoa. Actively offering this trade on the c5 square. This is quite striking. Like, he must really, really dislike his position to be doing this, right? Because nobody actively tries to play this position with black, right?
No, but you take on f5 maybe first, and then...
Maybe, but also, even in this position, like, you have some rook b3 ideas.
Yeah, rook b3, that's... Okay, yeah, maybe so keep...
You can include bishop f5, but... I mean, I'm not sure which one I dislike the least. They both...
But he just not blockade,
and he didn't take on c5. And he in this sentence is Wesley. Wesley just very quickly played bishop c3 here.
So just repeating, maybe moves to gain time, or?
Yeah, maybe, but he's on 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting, because like, you have to be very, very convinced that you will have a second opportunity, right? Yeah. I would spend some time here trying to figure out if I can find a way to stabilize here. Because if white somehow stabilizes here, he will be completely winning. It's
No, he
not
just
gonna,
collects all the pawns on the c
yeah,
file.
like eventually something will happen and everything will collapse. So yeah, I'd be extremely interested in trying to calculate in this position.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is the
Something
most
like, I don't know,
way.
knight e3 followed by rook c2. I understand there's some counterplay with queen e7 or maybe rook b3 first and then queen e7. But yeah, it's quite remarkable that Wesley said no to bishop takes c5 at this speed. I can imagine this actually not being the best move somehow, but so quickly. That's very, very interesting.
No, but maybe, well, yeah. Difficult to say, yeah. Why he would play that quickly? Maybe he's just expecting the repetition, so he just.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know how sure you can be of the fact that after bishop d4, once again Hikaru will play bishop c5. It's hang on a second. So once and then twice. So he can definitely still play bishop d4, but he will not be able to play bishop c3 afterwards. And he goes knight e3 instead. He just goes for something else altogether. Goes knight e3. Just going after the pawn straight away. Says, I just want to win the pawn on c4. It is cleaner this way.
Yeah.
If we take, we go, I don't know, rook b3, knight c4, queen a8. Is there any significant... Like, if you give me one more move to play queen a6, I will think maybe I have something. But white just never really... Like, white somehow will stabilize after knight
this
d2.
is very stable, yeah, knight d2.
Yeah, Hikaru goes bishop c8, trying to get the same pin going, but with the sort of a better piece on a6 compared to a queen, because that will be much more painful.
So again, resourcefulness, yeah, from Hikaru.
I mean, if we want, I think we can take. I think this actually is fine if we want to be kind of boring and materialistic. But black definitely has some
everywhere, yeah.
Like maybe even taken rook b4,
rook b4, queen b8, and so on.
Something like that. I mean, Wesley's definitely driving the action here.
No, yeah. I mean, he's pressing, obviously, but
yeah. Also, queen d3, as suggested by Kingfisher. Yeah, this might be cleaner actually, not to take the pawn, keep the c file open. This might be a cleaner option as well. Don't mind that move at all. Yeah, I think it's probably quite decent. Like, as a human being, you feel kind of reluctant to pin even more pieces, but maybe you just unpin them one by one later.
Yeah, and you maybe take on c4 with a piece, not with a pawn.
I mean, yeah, you definitely would like to take on c4 with a piece. So.
Yeah.
And Wesley now goes bishop d4. So there's the dance continues. I mean, you're not playing bishop c5 here. You play bishop a6. No. I assume he wants to go rook c2. Otherwise, I don't know. Hang on. Rook c2, queen e7. What is he doing? That is very strange. What's the plan here?
Maybe go back to f5.
I mean, c3 is
c3.
Something you have to consider.
c3, rook e3.
Yeah, I think this may have gotten slightly out of control for Wesley.
No, but
I mean, you can definitely still play knight f5. I'm not sure c3 is so great. Like, this position is very good for white. But
is that, I mean, it's not really optimal, yeah?
Yeah, but it feels like maybe we could have had this earlier. And yeah, black will not be unhappy about having an extra exchange. It's at least something. Also, after knight f5, I don't think Hikaru is absolutely obliged to... Hang on a second. This might be no. The repetitions were with the bishop on d7. Yeah, I was going to say this might be a threefold after bishop c8, but it's not. No.
Yeah.
It's a new position. It's a new position.
I mean, I was thinking maybe he can just switch his pieces to the king side, like rook e3, queen h5, and second g7.
Yeah, I've been sort of expecting for that plan to materialize, but it hasn't yet. But in particular, now that the bishop is on a6, it becomes a lot more attractive to try to go for that, because previously black would always have the bailout option of bishop takes c5. Yeah. Which is why I think the choice really is between c3, just saying, yes, I understand there will be a tremendous amount of compensation, but there is nothing stronger. Or if you don't do that, you kind of have to play bishop c8, I feel.
Yeah.
To once again have the option of taking that knight off the board if you need to. Otherwise, I think you might get mated.
Yeah, how worried he is. Yeah. the decision will just show how worried he is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
like-
somebody mentioned in one of the chats that Jan did not look happy on the camera. I would expect not.
I
Yeah,
could
I would expect he was kind of spitting nails there because, yeah, you don't get positions like this against Magnus every day, and
No.
you really do need to put them to bed because yeah, you might not have another one today.
And do we have information about Carlsen's reaction after blundering Queen C7, or we don't know?
Well, it's not on my screen. I'm not actually watching the main video, so
We don't know. Yeah.
yeah, we don't actually know. Hang on a second. Is this better or worse? No, that's worse. Hang on. I'm trying to fiddle with my. Louis will not be happy with me, but I'm trying to fiddle with my camera to make myself slightly more centralized. That's way to the other side. Okay, I think this might be better now.
Yeah.
I should have done that early. It was bugging me for the entire. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's also not very good. I'm never gonna get it right.
Never going to be centralized, you mean?
Yeah. What's happened? Like, why is there another repetition? So they've repeated this once now.
So he went bishop c8. Okay, so at least he showed he was worried about possible attacks.
Yeah, I mean, bishop c8 was kind of. Although people were suggesting that c3 is absolutely the only move you can make in this position, but I think, yeah, that position is not like from a purely human standpoint. You don't really enjoy looking at this very much. So I think I can understand Hikaru trying not to go for that. Yeah. But yeah, it's
after c3 go rook e3 and just try to mate.
rook e3.
I'm not sure. Just
b2.
take and or bishop d2 is the issue.
Bishop d2 or bishop c5. Both.
Yeah,
of
this
those,
is. I mean, okay, bishop c5, maybe bishop d4, but
Mm-hmm.
but bishop d2.
Yeah.
This was bugging me. I mean, just doesn't seem to be in time.
Yeah, definitely a question. And Wesley ends up playing rook c1. I mean, he obviously wasn't going to repeat the second time. I think he understands he's playing for a win here and kind of justifiably playing for a win. But it's interesting that he kind of he sprinkles in those little repetitions there.
Petrosian-like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Queen d7.
Attacks a4, but
yeah, I mean, tactically, this still loses material for white, or at least kind of looks like it might be losing material, because I'm now becoming unreasonably excited by ideas of like queen h5, bishop takes c4, and bishop takes f6, which I'm pretty sure don't work for a number of reasons. Like there must be about 10 reasons why this doesn't work, but I'm getting a little bit overexcited here.
Yeah. No, but these ideas are in the position.
Even like, how stupid is this? Just indulge me for a second. How stupid is this? I think the biggest issue is we have one check, but we might not be in time to bring any other attackers into the game, right? And queen h7 is a threat. So, I mean, I do have a draw, but it might not be more than a draw.
Yeah, so you're not losing it.
Yeah.
But then you don't play for a win like this.
There has to be a way for white to... I mean, if we want to sacrifice something like this looks very attractive, actually. A kind of a positional sacrifice, just complete domination. The rook goes to c6, and then we eventually start doing something on the king's side.
Why not?
Can white sack a knight on g7? We're being asked.
Why not rook e3?
I don't really like giving up that particular piece. I think this is the piece that needs to survive. Wesley for now goes rook ec2.
Okay.
Hikaru, of course, doesn't give up on c4, and Wesley goes h4. This, I think, indicates that after gh, he thinks queen g4 is very strong. And it probably is.
Looks like it.
Yeah, because knight h6 is a threat, bishop takes f6 is a threat. You cannot play queen f7 because it loses a queen. So you have to play something like king f8, and then, yeah, your position does start looking completely lost, honestly.
Yeah, the bishops are completely out of the game, so...
Yeah, it looks like finally he's settled on something which is very, very strong, and Hikaru's position is very likely to start falling under its own weight. Yeah, all of this actually played GH and King F8, but now after Queen takes H4, it's just horrendous. And White didn't even need to sacrifice anything for it, which is, I think, the efficient part. I guess he goes Queen F7. Yeah, he goes Queen F7. Maybe he is not as dead as I was trying to sell to the audience here. We're not obliged to take on H4 so quickly. We can try doing something smarter. Yeah, I was about to ask if this is playable.
Maybe.
Looks very playable, and this is what Wesley does. Bishop takes F6 is on the board.
Oh.
Yeah. And the biggest difference is if we do it the other way around, if we do it in this order, then Bishop F6, of course, Black will take with the Queen. So by starting with Bishop F6 on a previous move, you make sure that you force Black to take with the pawn, and now Queen F7 just loses to something here.
Something. What's something? I couldn't see.
Let me try and figure it out. Like we can include Queen F6. I guess it's something like this, right? Queen H6 check, and now Rook C3. Something like this will win.
Take Rook B3, no?
Ah, there's Rook B3 there in the end. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's very important. I missed Rook B3. So how do we win this position? And Hikaru actually goes King G8, not Queen F7, which is probably a smart choice. Thanks very much for the 6-month, Venus. I mean, the attack is so strong. I can definitely even consider maybe Rook takes C4 here, just trying to include the rooks in the game. But it feels. I think we start by taking Queen takes F6 here, right, and then we go from there. I don't know. That Rook B3 resource is just so tremendously important. Otherwise, in this position as well, Rook C3 would have been winning on the spot if not for the fact that Black has Rook B3 in the end.
Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, I don't know if G3, King G2, if there's time for that, but I mean, or Rook E1.
Queen H7 is actually being threatened. I think Queen H7 is something.
You take first and then, but no, you don't have time. But Rook E2.
Goes Rook E2. Yeah, he says I can do it. I can do it slowly. So now after Queen H7, he is planning just to play what? I guess he just takes on F6 and Knight H6 is a huge threat, right? So Queen H7 isn't actually all that important at all.
No, now he's kind of without moves.
Can we go Bishop C5? Stopping Rook E3, and once again Rook C3.
Rook B3, yeah, then.
Yeah, can we do this? Very curious that somehow this position still survives, because it really does look like Black should be getting mated kind of by force.
But
he goes Rook E5, yeah. This I think the problem here is that this is probably still mate. This is my issue with it. Yes, that knight looked very beautiful, but I think you're not surviving this anyway. Unless Queen takes F5 is playable, which it might be. But then I wanted to go Rook F3, and I wanted to argue that this is never like with all the guys still being stuck on the queen side. This normally
also pretty good. Okay, maybe
yeah. Rook E3 played. Having played Rook E5, Hikaru will now have to take. Of course, you don't. And Rook H3. This is maybe even smarter by Wesley. Creating a threat of Queen H7, Queen H8, Rook H7. So Hikaru will have to play something like Queen G7, and then he will take the rook. And there is no. Hang on, Bishop D2.
Yeah, Bishop D2.
Is this clever or not?
It's the only move, I think. Clever or not.
Curious. Hang on. Hikaru played what? Yeah. There's a G. No, but that gets mated by force. That's very weird. Hikaru just blundered mate here because King G6, Rook H6, and then Queen F6, and then Rook H8.
Yeah.
In a position where he could still have continued. That is very uncharacteristic. Hikaru normally doesn't blunder those things. Maybe he was lost. Maybe something like Rook C3 here wins or something.
Rook B3 again.
Rook
B3.
Yeah, we can still do this, right? Yeah. Yeah, but this is very unusual by Hikaru. Hikaru normally doesn't blunder mate with checks.
Yeah.
Very, very curious. And yeah, Magnus is now testing a different Grunfeld. I think Jan got a very poor position in this line against Vidit in the Open, so Magnus, I guess, noticed that. This is actually a line I recently analyzed for my, forthcoming Grunfeld course on Chessable. So I know a little bit of something about this, but I'm very curious to see if Jan sort of agrees with my assessments, because I have
Was it F5 that you should be
like all theory in this position used to be that you play maybe even I think you do it here, right? Takes and you go F5.
Yeah.
And EF is a draw, but the problem was this line. You castle, and there's a couple of positions here. You can choose between this position, which is probably equal, but probably a lot more fun to play with white, or you can choose this position, which is I assumed was fine for black, but it's kind of sharp, and you have to know what you're doing. So this Queen A5, Queen A3 line is interesting. I played this against Yu Yangyi in a rapid and blitz match we played in Shenzhen 2 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah, I analyzed these games for British Chess Magazine, actually.
Yeah, and after D5, I played knight D4, and I didn't actually equalize. I think knight E5 is more precise. We'll see if that's what happens. I am probably doing something very stupid here by kind of giving people a preview of what I'm trying to include in the course. That's probably not what I'm supposed to be doing.
No, but that's not actually a bad idea, because it spikes their curiosity. I mean, sometimes I do that too, but I mean, sometimes they ask me, okay, your new course, what's it going to be about? Okay, what about this line? What about that line? Okay, and then you just give a little bit of a preview, just to spike their curiosity. So it's not that bad, actually.
Yeah. Dr. Term says, Peter says, delete the WODs. Yeah. DMCA must come for these WODs, or all is lost. I'm only kidding. That's one small subline of a subline. I'm not that bothered by spoilers. But yeah, Queen A3 played. Apart from D5, there's really nothing that Magnus can even play here in this position, I feel, because I mean, Bishop B3 is a draw for at least. Like black can play Queen C3 or Queen A5, and we get to the same position again. So you absolutely have to play D5 here if you want to continue playing for a win. And then, as mentioned, both these moves exist, but I think knight E5 turns out to be significantly more precise. And actually, that's a good point, Eldorado. Wouldn't Magnus be happy with the draw? It's normally not what he does. But yeah, I completely failed to account for the fact that he's leading in the match.
Yeah.
So, but this is not game 4. This is game 3. So you make a draw with white, and then you have to defend with black. He was completely fine out of the opening in the previous one, but still, I think you don't normally you don't normally just give your opponent a 2-minute draw with white in game 3 out of 4 in a match like that. But I think you have to assign like a 10% possibility here to him going bishop c1. Having said all that, white is not by any means worse after d5.
Of course.
Like black still has to play precisely there to equalize. So it's not as if Magnus is running any kind of a significant risk if he does continue. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of a little debate there.
But I've noticed this kind of approach. I mean, especially in these matches, I mean, people just go for the Berlin Queen E4, Queen D4 draw and say to the opponent, okay, I'm ahead in the match, try to beat me with white. Yeah. I think this tendency to kind of crawl over the finish line is predominant. At least that's my impression. I mean, what do you think? I mean, I'm not saying Magnus will do it. I don't think he's probably one of the rare players who would not do it. Yeah. But I think
I think he's done a lot of that in the last games of the match. He's taken a lot of very pragmatic decisions in last games of matches and last games of opens as well. He's taken some extremely short draws famously in all those situations, but not in penultimate games. I would be surprised if it happened here, but as I said, like it's not a 0% possibility. And the longer he thinks here,
exactly,
the more possible it becomes, because maybe he for some reason didn't expect queen a5, queen a3, even though it's one of the more straightforward replies to this line. And like if you prepare h3, bishop e2, you have to be prepared for queen a5, queen a3, because there have been grandmaster games, and also I think it's one of the absolute top suggestions by engines. But perhaps he did not really expect that particular reaction, and he is now unsure he will be able to remember what the file says properly. And in all those cases, it does become significantly more attractive just to say, okay, this game is over. I don't believe I will lose with black. So why not just take one game off?
Yeah.
Yeah, people asking what's wrong with bishop takes a1. In general, you have to be extremely wary with black in the Grunfelds about giving up that, like some position like this often will be extremely, extremely dangerous for black. And that's putting it mildly, because you have to deal with bishop h6 ideas when you play f6. Eventually white pushes e5, and yeah, you like instinctively as a Grunfeld player, you kind of hate the very look of a position like this. You really would prefer not to play this. There is a famous, since Magnus is still tanking, there is a famous variation of the bishop c4 Grunfeld, which is like a whole book to itself, so to speak. In the absolute main old line of the bishop c4 Grunfeld, there is this position where black is actually significantly better developed here compared, like if you consider this position and then this position, the queen is on d8, which is a lot better than a3 actually, because it will participate in the defense. The knight on a5 is a lot better than on b4 actually, because it often comes here. There's a lot of line where actually black gets to play knight c4 later. And black plays f6 here. It's actually more or less a forced move. And the bishop actually does a decent job on f7 of defending the black king side. And even this line, you really have to know what you're doing to be playing it with black. It's extremely, extremely memory intensive. And if you go wrong, you could go wrong quite spectacularly. And it's very, very easy here not to equalize if you make a mistake. And yeah, and this position I think is just flat out bad. So you don't really take on a1 in these types of positions. And Magnus has actually played bishop e3. They've not repeated yet, but he played bishop e3 already. Queen a5 check. So the game might be over in about 30 seconds. And well played to those people in my chat who were suggesting that this is a possibility. Because honestly, to begin with, I thought this was like no chance whatsoever. Yeah. This is just not happening. Yeah,
Yeah, it's always a risk. I mean, if you win the match, it's a great pragmatic choice. If you don't, then it's chickening out, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it will look kind of weird if he loses game 4, but I mean, considering how game 2 went, I think he has a reasonable expectation of not losing game 4. Also, it's a bit of a double bluff because he's also asking Jan, do you think you will beat me with white? Or would you like to continue playing this position, in which actually probably taking the repetition is strictly the best decision?
Yeah.
Because if you play something like rook d8 here and allow castles, you might not equalize, because all of the knight takes d4 tactics, they all run into knight b5 here, avoiding the pin by attacking the knight or the queen on a3. And white is pretty ready to play d4, d5 next move. Once again, with the same exchange sacrifice that white is always quite happy to offer. And the important part about this is, of course, white has played h3 very, very early, specifically to stop bishop g4. So it's a lot harder to challenge the white center here. The pawn on d4 is a lot harder to actually attack properly when there's a pawn on h3. So Jan is sitting there thinking, draw with black without really having to think about anything else against the world champion. Fantastic. On the other hand, I will then have an absolute must win with the white pieces. Yeah. And I don't actually seem to have, judging by, game 2, I don't actually seem to have much in the way of opening pressure.
But it's not actually a must win. I mean, he still has a match tomorrow. So, I mean, there are still 4 games to go. I mean, yeah, it's a lost match, but still 4 more games to go. So it's not as like it's a do or die. I mean,
No, absolutely. But still, losing day one is,
Yeah, it's always
it makes your life a lot harder for day two against Magnus. Obviously, you
yeah,
would like not to lose day one.
yeah, apparently, yeah. But okay, if this ends in a draw, what do you think? Would Magnus still go for the Sicilian, or do you think he would go for Berlin stuff?
Um, hmm. I think it's probably more annoying for Jan if he repeats, because I think Jan generally has some ideas against Lee, like the Berlin anti-Berlin complex if he goes 1e4. But I mean, both are completely playable. I don't know. It's we'll see. Also, I mean, the kind of a double bluff so far has been sort of working because Jan hasn't played Queen A5 yet,
Yeah.
and he, and also knowing Jan, I know Jan quite well. He gets very annoyed when people do this against him.
What do you
There
mean?
was a
What is
there
this?
was a there was a famous incident in one of the World Rapids or World Blitz. I think it was, yeah, I can't remember exactly if it was Rapid or Blitz, where I think Anton Korobov in the final round played. How did that go? He played Bishop E3, C5, Knight F3, Queen A5, Knight G2 against Jan.
Oh yeah, the
And
repetition.
Jan castled here, and Korobov instantly played Knight B3. And Jan sat there fuming for a while and ended up playing Queen C7, Knight C5, and losing. Because he was so annoyed at the prospect of doing this. So and after the game I spoke to him and he was just so unhappy about not being given a chance to play a game of chess there. So I think he's sitting there not really enjoying this little kind of internal debate that he's having with himself right now. But yeah, we'll see what he decides.
Yeah.
We'll see what he decides.
Can I ask you something? Do you remember the game we played?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. Okay.
It was referred to in chat, and after people referred to in chat, I kind of remembered what it was. But
yeah, I have actually I mean, it depends how much you remember it. I have a question about it. I mean, after a while, I checked the chronometer of the game. Yeah, how much time you spent on each move. Yeah, and I was shocked to see that the most time you spent on the move was the move H3. If you remember, it was the Scheveningen, Keras attack, G4, H6, and you spent H3. You spent 8 minutes on H3, and for the remainder of the game, you spent less than 8 minutes on all the either move. Yeah?
I think you're probably exaggerating a little bit, but
No, I'm not. I checked the official transmission.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not exaggerating at all. I mean, that's why I remember it, because it was exactly like that. And I was thinking, I mean, my question is, why was, I mean, obviously you were deciding between H3 and H4.
I was trying to figure out the move orders because there's H4, although H4 I never really looked at. There's also Bishop G2, which is not entirely stupid, and I kind of get confused about move orders in that position, and I wanted to make sure I don't make some kind of mistake. Jan has done something interesting here. He played Queen C3, but after Bishop G2, he did not play Queen A3, which would have stopped the game automatically. I think the server just says this is a threefold, and stopped the game. And he played Queen B2, which obviously you can no longer play Bishop C1 here. I think you're kind of supposed to play Rook B1, Queen A2, and D5 here. The issue with that is that I think it's pretty decent for white.
Yeah, this is a worse version of that Bishop E2, Rook
Like
B1.
95 castles, although this might actually transpose to at least some of the positions that I looked at when I was looking at this line. This might actually be a transposition to some of the main lines I was quoting. Like after 95, definitely Rook B1 is one of the moves you have to look at, and castles. Often white will go Rook B1 next, and it will become very, very similar to this. But yeah, eventually, as you can see, Jan spent like 4 minutes of his time there, and actually said no to a draw with the black pieces against Magnus.
Yeah.
So in some way, the kind of a gambit of offering this threefold has worked.
I don't think he's risking that much. I mean, he's keeping his chances, theoretically speaking, higher. I mean, he has 2 games to equalize, yeah, opposed to 1 game. Yeah.
Yeah, and game 3 of the All-American match started, and Wesley is playing the I keep on misnaming this thing. This is a Steinitz, right? It's not a.
It's semi-Tarash, isn't it?
So yeah, there were too many strong German players at the turn of the century. Like there's the enhanced Lasker and the enhanced Steinitz and all of those things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and Wesley
Steinitz
keeps
deferred.
on. Yeah, Wesley keeps on defending this position. He's done this a number of times against Tamor as well in the quarters. Queen d4, e5, e4, and all of that.
Yeah.
All of that theory has been discussed quite a bit, and it feels like he has some new-ish ideas there, which seem to be quite decent.
Probable, but I think Nakamura will not go for it. Maybe some e3 and play against the IQP, as Rajabov, I think, did once.
Yeah, and Rajabov also kind of strangely did this once, which really was a very nothing idea, and predictably ended in a draw by move 15. Yeah, I think Hikaru will take with the queen, and also like you really shouldn't be tanking here normally, because Wesley has been doing this consistently with black in this tournament, so this should not come as any kind of a surprise at all. But we'll see. Yeah, and Magnus, unsurprisingly, because he was pretty much forced into it, does go rook b1 and d5. But this is decent for white. It is still black who has to be somewhat precise.
Yeah, but 5-minute difference, that's not
little. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And this is a very sharp position, of course, because if white somehow misplays it, 95 castles, I'm actually kind of tempted to to check the file.
Yeah.
Let me just.
You can.
Yeah, it's a good thing that this option exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, 95 castles. I'm pretty sure this actually just straight up transposes to what I was looking at, and if black plays a move that I think is sort of correct here. Actually, it doesn't. It's kind of weird because there are very, very similar positions here, which like vary, in very minute details, but they're not entirely the same. And like my philosophy in the Grunfeld is often, when people give me this pawn, I'm very interested in the idea of returning it as soon as possible. Thanks very much for the fix, human, by the way. Returning some material instantly to generate play. And in this position, there is, for instance, an option of just giving up the pawn on b7 straight away by playing bishop d7. But Jan goes bishop f3, knight f3. Sorry, knight f3, bishop f3. And I wonder what his next move is, because now the game starts revolving more or less specifically around the question of whether white will get to play e4, e5. If this pawn crosses the fifth, if white, either by supporting with rook e1 or as Yu Yangyi has done against me in the blitz, but there I made a stupid mistake and my bishop was on d4. So bishop f4 actually came with a tempo because I played knight d4 and not knight e5. If white establishes these two pawns, the fact that black has an extra pawn on the queen side will matter almost not at all. Because white starts generating so many threats in the center that the black runners don't actually achieve very much. But Jan says, okay, let's go. This is now a race. I'm going to start pushing the a pawn down the board, and you'll have to do something about it. So options for white here definitely include rook e1. After rook e1, very often black actually stops this sort of physically by playing bishop g7, e5. This is a very typical way to prevent e4, e5. And yeah, this is why Magnus goes bishop f4. I think it's a very, very logical idea, just because you don't like giving black bishop e5 as an option. And if you just look at some position like this, once the connection between the bishop on g7 and the a1 square is broken, this pawn kind of no longer really looks very threatening at all. And white can start increasing his initiative in all kinds of ways. And this is actually on the board.
So how would you evaluate this?
I like this for white.
Like it?
I've never really liked these types of positions for black. Sometimes they're fine, but they are extremely risky for black. And also, I have such horrible flashbacks of losing, game after game after game like this to Kramnik when I was a kid. That that I never particularly enjoy looking at this, honestly. I understand there's a pawn on a3 already, but I don't think it runs as quickly as all that. Although we'll see. Yeah, it's a very sharp position. I could be completely wrong. Black could be doing quite well after something like Queen A4 here.
So how does white win these positions with that center on E5 D5?
I think in this particular case, you just kind of try to round up and win the A pawn. Like if
So
you can attack, like for instance, if you go A2 here, I just go Rook A1 and then I go Rook C2 and I pick it up, and then once the A pawn is gone, it's just bad. So you start with Queen A4, and yeah, this is the big question. Like how does he make any progress at all?
Because D6 opens the locked diagonal, so you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Like normally you would want to create a passer on the D file, but that reestablishes the bishop on G7, and A2 becomes a huge big problem. So it's an interesting practical decision by Jan to go for this, because this is very, very sharp. I don't know if it's good specifically. I'm not entirely convinced Jan's position here is all that great, honestly. But in terms of generating winning chances, it's a fantastic decision, because you can definitely, like, you don't need to be a very imaginative person to see how this could go badly wrong for white with the pawn already on A3 or A2.
B5, B4 sometimes.
Yeah, like if it gets joined by the second guy, for instance, you're just in so much trouble.
Yeah. And also less than 6 minutes for Carlsen, so it's not that simple, yeah? From a practical perspective, at least.
Yeah, it's definitely a very, very sharp position. I'm trying to figure out, yeah. Somehow I wasn't actually getting there. It's somewhat surprisingly, they ended up on a position I did not look at all, because the move order that they got there with doesn't actually allow for the exact transpositions to what my file says. So I have no actual way to kind of get back to the studied material. Thanks very much for the sub, B-Word. Welcome back. Yeah, it's definitely some material for Peter, even though I don't think I don't think this is stronger than what I was prepared to suggest for black against this line. It's very close to what I was going to suggest anyway. It's in spirit, it's pretty much the same thing, but it's a slightly different move order. And yeah, once again, a fantastic decision from, in terms of practical chances, fantastic decision by Jan, because very double-edged position, extra 6-ish minutes on the clock, and yeah, pushing Magnus as much as possible in this game looks like a very wise decision. And as Chess Fan correctly says, thinking for more than 6 minutes on Bishop B3 might be something that Magnus will come to regret. I think Magnus probably expected Bishop B3 not to be a draw, for it to be just an actual draw. I think he thought that ended the game. And now that the game hasn't ended, he definitely will feel that he should have taken that decision to either repeat or not to repeat there a lot faster. Yeah, he goes Rook A1, which was, I was going to suggest this move exists, but I was worried about B5. I guess B5 we do have D6 with tempo, because white quite simply put, he wants to go Rook C3 and just go after the A pawn. So the moves for black here, B5, you still have to calculate something like this, but it looks very...
E6? Is ED6 that bad? I mean, sacrifice that...
yeah, it's an exchange. Yeah, it's not the full rook. Yeah. No. Maybe even D5 here. Yeah. But also the move that Jan made, I was going to mention, Bishop F5, because if we go Rook C3, now after A2, Rook C2 is not possible, and also the bishop is headed towards the B1 square. Hang on a second, but maybe we can go G4 here. Maybe this is smart. Because if you go bishop d3, I win at tempo. But, hang on, there's bishop b4. Yeah, I've completely, that square dropped out of my line of vision for a second. G4 is just not a move you can make at all. Yeah, and then bishop f5 is very strong because if we we played rook f1 as white with a very specific idea of chasing the pawn.
Rook a2 maybe now, but
Okay, so now I'm definitely very interested in b5.
yeah.
This is just such a huge improvement compared because we will be even taking on a8 with the rook there. So
no, but just the pawns are rolling and it's winning for black.
Yeah, if it gets here, the game is just over.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will be a very strange game for Magnus to lose like this.
I mean, we will see, but normally these courageous decisions to continue playing are rewarded. But again, we will see. Yeah.
At least you like seeing them rewarded. Let's put it like this: you like people getting rewarded for continuing to play against a player of Magnus's stature.
But not even
in general, yeah, but also specifically because if you put simply, he had a draw in hand against the world champion with black and said no to it, which is quite impressive. I guess after rook a2 b5 we maybe have bishop d1 here, which is not stupid. And then we can put it on b3 and continue playing. b5 is not the only move though. We could start fighting for the c file here. Something like this definitely makes a lot of sense as well. Feels like black is in control, honestly. In the meantime, just briefly to revisit that game. This is currently the position. I feel like I kind of lack basic understanding of these structures to give an evaluation here. Black is probably fine, but this is a bit of an intricate structure where, let's say, if I could play, I don't know, we could start with queen c2 here, for instance, yeah? Queen c2 forces black to play g6, and let's say if I could play c4 and black did not have d4, or something like knight e5. I would argue this is close to winning for white because of just how completely destroyed the black structure is. But d4 does exist, as does knight e5. So it's a kind of a difficult to assess structure where it helps if you have been playing, let's say, the Rogozin all your life, because then your bearings are a lot more solid than mine are, as somebody who has never played that opening in his, well, not never, but I am not a Rogozin player.
Yeah. But I still think it's a good choice, practical choice for Nakamura to play for win, because, it's a playable position as opposed to that forced endgame. Forced endgame. Which
so he avoided those positions by including queen a4 check and then going takes d4 and then just retreating to d1. It feels a bit strange to be forcing black to play bishop d7, but if you do it with the bishop on c8, you also have to consider bishop c5 and d4 straight away. There is a fun suggestion, because apparently we're not really watching the mainstream, and apparently Jan for at least a brief moment went AWOL from the cameras, which I think strictly speaking you're not supposed to do during games. I know how the contracts are structured for this, so Jan is actually, apart from the camera that is being transmitted to the official show, there is also additional cameras in use. So I'm guessing he is still on screen somewhere.
You mean to the arbiter? So to
But yeah, that's if you want to kind of go on a tangent, you can start discussing whether this is a good idea to believe. Why has he played queen b3? How is he planning to respond to bishop d1? What happened there? Why didn't he play rook c2? Rook c2, maybe rook takes a3 exists. Whoa. He has queen c3. I keep on missing squares. I just did not see the c3 square existed. Black is just much better, isn't he? Maybe winning. Because he's just a pawn up, and the pawn on a3 is still alive.
Yeah, what does white have? The problem is he can never push d6. He's okay, maybe.
Yeah, but here, rook d3, even bishop takes e5 was a mistake, but rook d3 is strong. Yeah, and apparently, there's some discussion on the official Norwegian broadcast that what Jan is doing is incorrect. It's definitely incorrect in terms of the letter of the law. I think considering that Magnus instantly resigned after making a mouse slip in their open match, and actually said in an interview, because Jan has done this once before. Jan offered a draw against somebody who made a very bad mouse slip against him. So Magnus said he did not want to give Jan a chance to start thinking what he should do after a queen blunder mouse slip. But yeah, I mean, I assume Magnus would not want Jan to get disqualified for disappearing off the camera for like 10 seconds. They've known each other for 20 years. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of trust there.
Yeah.
And I'm also hearing that that Jan got permission from the arbiter. So, I don't particularly want to participate in a particular discussion because it's a bit of a hot topic. But I will say that I have some idea of what their personal relationship is, and I would be very, very surprised if Magnus was in favor of trying to enforce this particular rule very strictly. Yeah, I think Jan is pretty much winning here, and he is also kind of in control on the clock. So, will be very difficult to save this position for Magnus. He is a pawn down. G5 is additionally annoying because before he takes on D5, Jan also softens up the white center first. So it's
So is bishop B2 losing outright?
Bishop B2 we can take on D5 for now.
Now bishop F3 and
yeah, I think we go back to D3 and we continue faffing about. And it's now 2 pawns. If you take on B7, your structure in the center will get completely destroyed, and the pawn on A3 is still safe. Doesn't really look great. He's played bishop B4.
Yeah, bishop B4.
This is. Hang on, but after GF, how do you continue after GF? Maybe he has bishop C2 or something.
Bishop C2.
I guess that's his idea, bishop C2, and then trade these guys. But this looks like it shouldn't survive somehow. Apart from GF, what other options do we have? I mean, we can probably start with rook, with rook takes D5.
No, I think those two are the options. I mean, GF or rook D5, you have to take something.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you, Henny. Henny Graith says, to suggest that a player has a say in how rules are enforced. I'm not saying Magnus would have a say. I'm saying he would not be happy if it's definitely, that's actually something I've had discussions about with people, not even in chess-related topics, but in general. I absolutely agree with you that it should be completely taken out of the hands of the players. All of these decisions have to be strictly enforced by arbiters without asking the players. All I was saying is that Magnus would not be in favor of that rule suddenly being strictly enforced, but I don't think anybody would ask him. I'm pretty sure his opinion would not be consulted. There is there are rules and regulations, and they would be adhered to somehow.
But the players are able actually to see each other during the game, right?
For me, Microsoft Teams is a tricky program, so I wasn't actually able to do that when I was playing, because for some reason for me it's a lot easier in Zoom to find the video of my opponent than it is in Microsoft Teams, which they are using for this one. But
you were not seeing your opponent.
Theoretically it should be possible, yes.
Okay.
So Jan did take on F4, and after bishop C2, rook D4. I thought maybe bishop C3 or bishop C5, but both of those are met by rook C4. So Magnus takes on E7. This has to be loser. Like at worst, Black gets some kind of a position like this, right? This is the absolute worst case scenario, which should, by all accounts, this should be winning. Yeah. And there's probably something stronger after bishop B7. I assume there might be something even better, which doesn't even allow white to win the pawn on A3. But if you don't find anything stronger, you can just go here, and you should expect to win this against anybody. This really shouldn't be too much of an issue for anyone to win with Black.
It's probably simpler than that knight endgame.
Yeah, and looks like we are headed that way. Meanwhile, in the Nakamura game, this probably is just fine for black now, right? I mean, the rook on a6 is kind of active, but you can go rook b8, b6, and
This is fine, yeah.
as long as you don't blunder some kind of an e4 tactic which blows everything up, you should be completely okay. Knight d3, c5 also is something you could consider, or knight d7, c5. So let's watch this endgame,
Yeah,
which actually did
they went for
materialize.
this, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, normally speaking, black wins this without even too much of an issue because the king just starts getting active, the b pawn runs. Magnus just immediately transposes into rook
I want
end.
to ask you this. I mean, what about the rook endgame if black doesn't?
I missed that move. That's a very smart decision by Magnus.
Yeah.
I just missed that this move existed, and he also does it in such a way that I would like to play f6 here, but that loses the b pawn.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's a very, very clever decision. I am starting to see the outline of how Magnus ends up not losing this position. Now that bishop b2 is on the board. I just didn't see that move existed at all. Very clever.
So
I suspect it's still won somehow, but it's already kind of tricky.
So what do you go? Go king f6 now or what?
King f6, but what do you take on e5 with? This is the big question. This is like the next big question. What do you take with?
Probably to have rook e7, but
yeah, but then you've lost this guy, right? So probably lost this guy.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and I think king g7 was as chess fan is suggesting, starting with f6.
Yeah, then
just to make sure that, let's say bishop b2, we have rook b5 here, and we don't lose the b7 pawn after taking fe. That probably just wins kind of comfortably. So king, I think Jan kind of tuned out there for 1 second.
Yeah, he was relaxed for one move.
Yeah, and he might actually pay a heavy price for this because if the bishops come off the board and there's no immediate way to make progress, it starts getting into the territory of endgames, which you can most assuredly not fail to win. And he goes b5, which is basically saying, I will win this. I will win this without the f pawn. The f pawn is now going to get lost.
So what do you think about this endgame?
First of all, I probably start with rook b. If I can, I start with rook b2, because I don't like the idea of allowing the rook to get behind. I think this probably is winning. Like my instinctive reaction to this endgame is that it should be winning for black. But if I can play rook b2 here, let's say king f6, king f3, king f5, rook b4, and continue, attacking the f pawn without committing to that setup for, not committing, allowing that setup for black. Or you can go even more hardcore. You can just go rook c7.
Rook behind,
Yeah, just go rook c7. But then maybe you don't win the f pawn, which is a bit of an issue. So he goes rook b2. I guess the king goes to g5 and not f5, so that after rook b4, we're not actually threatening to take because the pawn endgame, of course, is completely lost. And now we go something like, I don't know, h5, h4, f5. But how do we make progress with black here?
King to the queen side, but...
Yeah, but then it becomes a race. Then it becomes very double-edged, In the meantime, I'm pretty sure this game will be drawn post-haste.
Nakamura spent only 5 minutes on all this.
Yeah, he's not. It's interesting because he is trailing, and he is leaving himself with a must-win game with black in order to equalize today. And I mean, we all know how difficult it is to beat Wesley with black when he doesn't really need to play for a win. So we'll see. We'll see. So, we're watching this rook endgame, and I think, this is what Magnus is now trying to do. He is just keeping the rook on b4 for the rest of the game, pretty much, and just going king f3, king f2, and saying, "Please, young man, demonstrate how you are making any progress whatsoever here." And I think eventually you have to just give up the pawn on f4 and start running in that direction, right? I don't see any other plan.
Maybe, and then run to the king side.
Yeah, you can go rook f5, but then if you start running, I will play something like
pawn on h5, rook on e5 stays on e5, and then.
Okay, so let's say king f3. We go what?
Well, move the rook to win a tempo, and then.
Yeah, Okay.
and then go king g6.
Yeah, well, maybe even like this. Yeah, this is probably what
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.
But then I give you a check and I take on a 4, and you have to start
True.
calculating. Although, I mean, you kind of expect to win this with black, but with you're not 100% convinced. I think like some of these you win, some of these you don't.
Maybe rook c6, but
Yeah,
yeah.
rook 6. Yeah, you could definitely just initiate some kind of a race like this. And I mean, I can definitely believe this being winning for white because of how horribly misplaced this rook is and how quick the b pawn is. But I mean, it's it's not a given that you win this. It's definitely an open question whether like rook h8, b3, rook b8. You have to calculate.
Yeah, you have to calculate.
You would like to go rook c5, rook b5, but I'm not even. Yeah, we are actually in time. We can do this, right?
Just in time. Yeah.
Can do this because the h pawn doesn't win as fast as the b pawn. Yeah, I mean the assumption is you win this, honestly, but it's not a very safe assumption.
And probably white should do something else. So I mean, I don't know if he can do it something else. I mean, black can just go for this setup.
Yeah, I think he eventually he will have to, and he is trying to decide where he wants his pawns because we actually lost that pawn on h5.
Yeah.
So maybe you have to keep it on h7. Maybe you just go straight away. Yeah, king f5. You go king. Yeah, he just gave up straight away.
Yeah.
Gave up on the f4 pawn. And I think that's the right way to go. Keep the h pawn away from obvious immediate checks. And yeah, once again, people who have internet connections are telling us black is completely winning. But the thing is, if Ceci says -8 here, it's not a kind of a -8 where you can just close your eyes and win it by autopiloting. Oh, hang on a second. You can't even take because rook c4 trades the rooks. That might be important.
Yeah, that is important.
So you have to burn a tempo here somehow, bringing the black king closer to where it's supposed to go. But what I wanted to say is, there are different -8s. There are -8s with like white being or black in that case has like a piece, an extra piece and a mating attack, and there's really nothing to talk about. Or there are -8s with black being a pawn up in some rook endgame, where obviously the computer will never again make a mistake in that game. Whereas as a human being, you are not guaranteed to make all the best moves from here on. So you can. I mean, it's important to know that this is winning for black, which is why, to a degree, I welcome the input from people who have access to those evaluations. But it's not a kind of a -8 you never see being drawn. Why is it so hard to beat Wesley with black? Asks Lord of Swarms. He has a very, very solid opening repertoire, which he knows inside and out, which is kind of important. And he is also sort of fast, extremely practical, will not take unnecessary risks. Rook f5 surprises me here, by the way. I expected him to just go king d5 and start pushing. But I guess rook f4, f5, rook h4.
The pawn on b5 was hanging. Which position? Like rook b5.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, obviously not rook king d5, king d6, and then f5.
f4. So I mean.
Yeah, and well, my St. Petersburg club has just won the Russian clubs with a round to spare. So congrats to the bronze horseman.
Mednev.
Yeah, the Mednev Sadnik. They absolutely dominated that event, and clearly I was not required in any way, shape, or form. So happy they were so comfortable without me, because I was not very, very excited to fly anywhere and be around people.
Yeah. That's a common.
Yeah, and I mean, with the super final, it's like 12 people, whereas the Russian clubs is a much larger bubble, and also staying in a very, very big hotel. I don't know how full that hotel is right now, but it's a very big hotel, which normally has all kinds of people everywhere. So I was not really, all that enthused about about going there at this point of time.
Let's go
And
to the
apparently it's a draw now. Apparently rook a1 is very strong. Yeah, I was wondering about this h5, h4 maneuver. This did not seem right. I think he needed at some point to just kind of bite the bullet, play something like king d6, rook e5 check, and king c5, and just start running. Yeah, and now after rook a1, yeah, you can sort of see that this has gone slightly off the rails for Jan. So no, okay. Rook a1 is actually mistaken. Rook b4 was a draw. Yeah, as you can see, like we are watching arguably the best technical player of the last, I don't know, couple of decades against somebody who, Jan has a reputation of being, a wild, exciting tactical player, but he's actually a very strong technical player. I've seen him win a lot of very impressive dry endgames, and they're basically making mistakes every second move.
Yeah.
And I'm mentioning this specifically to return to the -8 conversation. This is a kind of a -8 where you see changes in evaluation a lot. It's not a very easily convertible type of -8.
No, not at all. Come on. This is.
And like I'm being told that this is now, I don't know if rook d5 was a mistake again, because like honestly, rook d2, rook b8, I have a feeling this might be a draw again. Could very easily be a draw again now, because it might be that you have to allow f and h now, and you don't win f and h without huge mistakes. Yeah, so I just sort of wanted to come back to that particular conversation, because not even -8. There are some kinds of +2 SESA evaluations which are basically 1-0.
Yeah.
And there are some kinds of -8 evaluations which could very easily be still a draw.
Okay, rook g2, now it must be.
Yeah, now it is f and h, and I'd be. And honestly, I'm not even sure if it's f and h, because you might not be able to pick up the pawn on h3 without giving up the pawn on h4. We'll see.
Yeah. Can go.
Yeah.
Okay.
King takes f4, rook g3, and I have a feeling it's not even going to be that easy to keep both pawns alive after something like rook a5 or something. I mean, maybe we can take and go rook h1 and then start pushing a 5 check, but I mean, the biggest issue is that simply king f3, king g2 is strictly speaking just a draw. So, yeah, and then we return to our original statement. People have lost f and h.
Yeah, but here you lose h pawn. No, I mean you can't make progress.
Rook a8 is actually very clever. He is now playing it in such a way that even forcing a 5 check is kind of impossible. He just keeps the rook on the back rank, and black never even gets a proper f and h where everything is connected. Yeah, I guess he does. Yeah, this one he actually doesn't lose now, I suspect. Yeah, because h3, king g3, and we never actually we're never in trouble again. f5, I can even maybe go something like rook b6.
Maybe we can go king g6 instead of f5, but
yeah, but then rook gh. You mean with the pawn on f5? Yeah, that's true. And that's what he's done. Yeah. But yeah, draw has to be a heavy favorite now, because I think Magnus, at some point, he's done a lot of work just to make sure all of his, technical endgames like this are completely nailed on, and he never really messes them up again. Because there was this famous game he lost to Levon in one of the Cal memorials when he was still quite young, and he lost, a very, very well-known kind of famous theoretically drawn endgame. But since that game, I think there was a concerted effort to tighten up, and I think they kind of disappeared from his practice.
Yeah, I read about it. I mean, Dvoretsky or Kasparov, somebody gave him an assignment. Okay, just deal with this. I mean, just know these endgames.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And actually, what he's done here, I think black just never actually connects everything.
No
the setup with because you never get to play a 4 check. Like if in this position we just go rook b5, for instance, and if you go f4, I can take, and then I can go back to g3. So it's just a draw. So Jan actually had to give up the h pawn, and this position is not very difficult to hold. Just go rook a2,
Yeah.
And it's not very tricky anymore.
No, this is elementary, but okay. I mean,
Yeah.
he'll probably play on a little bit more and then just vent
No,
his.
of course you play on, but yeah, I would be reasonably confident of not losing this with white, and I am not normally very confident about my rook end games.
Probably even at 3 a.m. being woken up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay holding this
You'd
with
be
white.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. Yeah, now king g3, and yeah, that's just it basically, because yeah,
Okay.
rook f4 is an actual threat now, and you never cross it back.
Yeah, that's a huge disappointment for Jan. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to make him any happier.
No.
For sure. So we have game fours in which Hikaru will have to play for a win with black, and Magnus has to make a draw with black. Slightly different situations in the two matches, but still clearly one side is favored. And yeah, this has been agreed drawn, not unexpectedly.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I mean, 2 winning endgames and failing to win, it's really a huge blow. I mean, you don't get that many chances. Not even against Magnus, against any of these guys. So I mean, it's a bit too much. But
yeah, and this one, like the first one, although I don't know, that knight endgame, I think he's probably going to be less happy about this, because in the knight endgame, at least he was like on a minute.
Yeah, no, I agree. This one was the big one. I mean, this one.
Because if he just, I think basically he made more or less one move in this game completely by hand. Complete autopilot to play king g7 here. If he goes f6, white never actually gets to trade those bishops in any kind of an advantage, because this is completely lost. You never hold this position. We all know this much, and if you prepare for bishop b2 this way, and then you start bringing the king out, I think he converts very comfortably from here.
But I mean, what is your experience? I mean, I remember noticing in my experience that when you play a game, and then you kind of relax for one split second, like in this case, you play one move without proper calculation or without proper care, and then it gets punished immediately. That's normally, for me, it has been a sign of bad form or bad luck. I mean, I don't want to call it bad luck, but I just want to say bad form. Your hand just makes the move that is immediately punished, and you are getting punished.
Yeah, it does feel like you're running bad, but I don't know exactly how to describe that effect. But like it happens a lot more. Like once you get to a certain level, you kind of stop being surprised when you get punished for bad decisions, right? Because against the level of opposition these guys are playing against, you are sort of expected to see every misplay instantly punished by your opponents. So it no longer really feels like you are unlucky. It just feels like, but that feeling in particular, like I've done this so many times in my career, in particular in classical, like I come to a game in proper like fighting spirit. I play well. I think about all the critical decisions in the game, and then I make one decision in 10 seconds. And that turns out to be the one decision in the game which was incorrect and which like throws everything I've done up to that point completely out the window. And it's just such a painful thing. Like you're sitting there thinking, but I've been thinking about every move. Why couldn't I think about this one too? Like it's just unbelievably painful.
How to explain it? I mean, when you put it in a bigger context of your tournament, result, or how you're feeling in the tournament, how you're doing in the tournament. When you put it in a higher context, how do you explain that one decision that threw it all away?
I think in my case, often it actually happens in games when you're playing well, because like when I feel like I'm playing well, I tend to trust myself a little bit more, and I tend to kind of let myself autopilot slightly freer, because I feel like on this particular day I am unlikely to make a horrible mistake when I trust my instincts. So it's normally a very logical move, which is not like a huge blunder. It's something that makes a lot of sense, but unfortunately has a tactical refutation of some sort, for instance. And yeah, it happens. There is a question about game 2 for Hikaru, but I think actually he plays the Dutch. That's nice to see. I think Noisy Miner, I think it's difficult to answer that question properly without bringing the board up and going into some kind of a long explanation. But if you have the position in front of you, the issue is you have to do something, because if you allow white to play bishop b3 and rook c1, you might never actually activate the bishop on b6 anyway. So I think c5 was an understandable decision there. It didn't pan out, but I don't think it was horrible. Yeah, the Dutch in a must-win game is of course very understandable, and it's also an opening Hikaru has played a lot in this particular situation.
You of course remember what Petrosian said about the Dutch.
Yeah, the Dutch and the King's Indian. Petrosian had strong opinions about those two openings. Yeah.
Did you meet?
No,
you were too young when he died.
Yeah, I was. That was before my time. We were born on the same day, though, so I feel some kind of a spiritual connection. But we've never met. I think the Dutch quote by Petrosian was, "If people want to play the Dutch against me, let them."
Yeah.
I think that was the quote. Yeah. And about the King's Indian, he said, "The King's Indian built me my dacha," I think was the quote.
Yeah, he fed my family or something like that.
Oh, yeah, so something along those lines. Yeah, he basically was very much in favor of people playing the King's Indian against him. In particular, I think for some reason there was a very heartwarming quote for me, because I think it was specifically addressed to Edward Guffeld playing the King's Indian against him. For some reason, the idea of Petrosian just absolutely, kind of making a bit of a clown out of Guffeld in a King's Indian, it always kind of warmed my heart. I don't know. I know where my sympathies lie in that particular matchup.
Yeah, okay.
Let's put it like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, Wesley quite naturally doesn't go for any kind of more forcing continuations there with c4 knight c3. I expect him to play e3 here, because after you've played e3, you can definitely start looking at the idea of, let's say if black goes, I don't know, some kind of a waiting move. What can we name as a waiting? Even let's say d6. I am definitely in a must-draw game. I am definitely quite interested in just doing this and saying this is now completely symmetrical. Yeah. And why not? But yeah, Wesley actually proves me completely wrong by including c4, which I did not expect. G5 now we play 3, I guess.
Yeah, G5. Okay, yeah, showing must win.
Yeah. I mean, he has to push. Also, maybe we can make an argument for this as well, right?
But then, well. Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Takes d5 exists as a reply.
D5 without taking even, but
or the immediate d5, because the structure looks extremely funky, but maybe maybe that's exactly what you want.
F3 and okay, well.
Yeah, I mean, white is probably doing quite well, but it could get sharp, like if you start breaking this up.
He has to start thinking early at least. So
yeah. I would play e3 here, honestly. I think like e3, g4, knight e1, we're not.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah, this is autopilot stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we just go back to d3, and this is sort of exactly how you want your pieces to be positioned. Yeah. And after e3, we're definitely looking once again at take 92 and f3 ideas. I think like e3 is like a very obvious autopilot move in this position. Yeah. The fact that Wesley hasn't done it probably indicates that he is looking quite seriously at this trade on 95 line. Is there a way to see the standings of who will get voted back? Not right now, but I have a feeling that like if there's any justice in the world, Alireza is getting voted back in. So
yeah, how does it work actually with the voting? Well, I mean, how many people get voted back?
I think out of the, I don't know exactly, but from what I understand, out of the 8 people who played in the Skilling Open and didn't qualify to the knockout phase, one person out of those 8 gets voted back. And there is also maybe some additional, I'm not entirely certain, but there might be some additional ways to get into the next tournament, which also involved the Vox Populi.
Okay, so you're getting back then, yeah?
Probably not, no. And no, I mean, the way I played, I don't think I should.
Doesn't matter. I mean, you're popular. People vote for you. Come on.
So yeah, Wesley does go for this, and yeah, if White gets to play e3 and f3, this will become almost unwinnable for Black, I feel, because the position becomes just so dry that it's going to be very difficult to create any chances. But Hikaru will be looking to do something to stop that, because it's not a given that White has enough time for both of those things.
What about just f3 immediately? Okay, take an f3 immediately. Doesn't that?
I don't like allowing.
Oh, take on c6 first. Take on c6.
Yeah, okay. Take. I was kind of worried about allowing some kind of e3 followed by c5, but maybe that never works. Yeah, like e3 queen d3. That's never going to work for Black. I assume. We'll see. We'll see. We're not obliged to take on c6, but it's obviously very logical to continue spoiling.
I mean, if you play for a draw, you just chop off and then.
Yeah, and then, I mean, immediate f3, if it works, is a very sound choice for sure. But yeah, Wesley goes queen c2 for now. I think he was also worried about blundering some kind of d takes c4. I mean, not blundering, but allowing some kind of a really strange structure like this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we take on f1 first, of course. We don't allow rook takes f8. We take on f1, ask you what you take with. You probably take with, I don't know, something. And, and then I go c5. And I mean, it's probably completely fine for White. But why allow it if you can go queen c2 first?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, well.
Yeah, I mean, g4 definitely becomes a topic here. But I think maybe Wesley thinks that, let's say, if in order to stop him simplifying and just killing off all the counterplay, Black eventually has to play g5, g4, then the question becomes, with the position this close, how is Black ever making any kind of serious progress?
Yeah, how does Black win, actually, right?
Yeah. But I mean, Black just, piles on the pressure, starts going h5, h4 at some point. There was this game Hikaru almost won against, who was it? Where they got to some kind of a weird structure like this, and White was kind of holding the perimeter, and eventually Black pushed h3, the bishop got locked out on h1, and then Hikaru started opening up the queen side. It was in one of these online tournaments this year, I think it was against Dubov. Yeah, I think Mati Kronf is correct. That was against Dubov. And I think he ended up not winning that game, but he came very, very close. So yeah, Hikaru is good at this. Hikaru knows exactly how to continue piling on the pressure without committing to any one plan of action. He would not be a fun player to defend a passive position against at all. And I'm guessing the fourth game of the Nepomniachtchi-Carlsen match is also about to start, because there were some blinking things on my screen there.
Yeah, I mean, so you're still of the opinion that he goes c5 after e4, or because he tended to go e5 when he needed a draw.
Yeah, I think probably in that one he might switch it up. Also, just for a value of certain value of slight surprise. Obviously, Jan is not going to get shocked by e4, e5, but
but okay,
perhaps it gives him.
I mean, Jan can go c4. Jan can go something else. So b3, yeah. I mean, he was playing that lately.
Although I think against Magnus, it's probably not the best choice of in the world to go completely off the rails early. It was kind of interesting though when I played Magnus in the match in the Legends, when I got to the semifinals of the Legends. And played Magnus in the semis. In game one of one of the sets, I went for an extremely speculative line of I mean, it was the English to begin with, and then it became a kind of a Nimzo type position. And I did something,
Please remind me, bro. I've seen it.
some kind of bishop takes e3, d takes e3, and then I played f3, 4, and
Okay, okay.
yeah. And then basically I started sacrificing pawns by move 10, I think I sacrificed 2 or something. And I thought, considering the stylistic preferences and the general sort of skill differential by this point, I thought getting a kind of a messy position in which a price of one move is extremely high was maybe my best chance. And later I was told that Alexander Grishuk, who was doing commentary that day, basically said, what Peter is doing is absolutely idiotic. This is exactly what you don't do against Magnus. Against Magnus, you have to play sound positional chess. You do not ruin your structure. You do not give him targets to play against. So we were completely in disagreement, apparently, with Sasha. And I value Sasha's opinion greatly. So he was probably correct. And thank you very much to Pixar Clown for the 5 gifted subs, and welcome to Dongiso, Esilius, Kez, AGH, and Bologna Bolognese. This is going to be an interesting one, because I think Wesley, by playing Queen C2, Rook AC1, and E3 specifically, he has now more or less committed to defending this passively. I don't think he will have much in a way of actual counterplay in any kind of a foreseeable future.
So, okay, just while we're still at the topic, so after your experience with that game against Magnus, do you still think your choice was a good one, or you still...
Well, I mean, what I played was completely incorrect tactically, but Magnus reacted in such a way that for specifically one ply in that game, I was actually much better. I did not spot a very clever tactic which would have justified my previous play, because Magnus made a mistake. So we were kind of both correct. I ended up losing in 20 moves like an idiot. But I also, for a very, very short period of time in that game, I had a very good fighting chance. And I think my conclusion to that experiment was, you can do this against Magnus if you trust yourself to actually exploit every small chance that you will be given in the game, which I was not able to do on that day. And then, of course, if you can't do that, then you're dead. Like you cannot go for extreme high risk strategies against Magnus and then not exploit them properly.
Yeah, of course.
And also look at this. Jan is actually playing the Rook E1 anti-Berlin in a must-win game against Magnus. This is very, very curious to me. Like, I would actually play 1b3 instead.
You would rather play b3 than this?
Yeah, I think I would rather play 1b3 against Magnus rather than this, yes. Like, without a shadow of a doubt. For myself, I would go 1b3. I don't know how to play these positions for a win. I have no idea how you're supposed to play these positions for a win.
I mean,
in particular against somebody who is as well prepared as Magnus is.
Yeah. I mean, you push d5 and then you try to some space advantage, but that's theoretical, yeah? I mean, how do you do that in practice? It's a different matter. So, yeah. I mean, there was not these nice a4, rook a3 maneuvers.
Yeah, I mean, he has actually gotten some advantages recently in some games. So it's for him specifically, it's not a bad idea. He clearly has put a lot of work into these lines, and he's not doing this because he's given up. He's doing this because he believes he can get a little bit of something. But like, I just know that for me personally, I would be hating life so much if this was my position. I would just be looking at it thinking, go away. I don't want to look at you. Like, why is this my position? Would be my absolute overriding emotion would be, I don't want to be here. Please take this away from me. So it's very different for all of us.
Yeah. Obviously. No, but still a surprising choice. I mean,
yeah, it's a little bit surprising. Yeah, we'll see. And also, this particular line really doesn't look like very much. In the meantime, Wesley actually achieved something very important. As you can see, the dark squared bishops are now off the board, and Black has gotten somewhere on the king side, but his pieces are still some way away from actually mounting any kind of an offensive. The rook on a8 is going to be very difficult to activate, and you probably have to sacrifice the a pawn to do that. And just more generally speaking, I don't know how you create an attack, because the bishop on d7, if you could teleport it to f3, you probably give mate, but there is no legal, route for the bishop on d7 that gets him to f3. So yeah, I don't know how
Because
Hikaru
king
is
g7,
planning.
queen h8, second g2, get the rook, the other
Yeah,
rook to
but also white in the meantime could maybe play before b5 and blow everything open on the queen side and just. I guess if we play before, black plays a6. Like I genuinely think if you allow b5, your position just
Yeah, yeah.
collapses. For
But
now,
actually, it was black who went for the exchange of the dark squared bishops.
well, he played queen before queen a5. He played queen before, which was probably very smart because it creates a very unpleasant idea of queen e7. And then after bishop f8, he played queen a5, and Hikaru realized that, I mean, if he goes bishop h6, Wesley will not hesitate to just play queen b4 back.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's not going to stop there for a second. So yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, before a6 in a slightly different position. Before a6 has been played. I mean, a4 with the queen on a5, a4 doesn't actually create a threat because ab5 will attack the queen. So, but I mean, the bigger issue for Hikaru here is that a single rook is not going to give mate, and he cannot really play queen h8 because queen takes c7 is you can't allow queen takes c7. So he's a bit stuck here, and white can just start passing basically. Like you can go rook c3 here and just look at Hikaru quizzically and say, okay, what's your next move?
Yeah. Maybe click on offer draw.
I think they only do this in the Queen's Gambit, right? That's actually not. I mean, the TV series, not the opening.
The TV series, you mean?
Yeah,
they click on the TV series?
They don't click, but they actually do offer draws. Yeah, quite a lot in very unlikely situations.
I haven't seen it actually. I only saw the first episode when it came out, and then I didn't have the time, and I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, I still haven't finished, but I'm further along than you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the completely inappropriate draw offers don't really make a reappearance after the first couple of episodes, but
okay.
But they definitely do make an appearance early on in the series. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wesley did play a4 just to make sure that if b5 happens, it will more or less just win the game. For now, it's not a threat, of course. But you could make an argument for queen c5 and then b5.
Yeah. Queen c5, b5.
Yeah. In the meantime, the other position, like how do you play this for a win? I just have no idea. I think maybe Jan is just a little bit too disgusted with how the match has been going.
No, but then just click off for draw. I mean, come on.
I mean, it's not like, once again, there's been some discussion of this topic. I think the contract actually says you're not allowed. I think you're supposed to make 40 moves. So
okay, then it's different. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not really such an easy option here.
No, but come on, they were doing it in 14 moves. Jan did it 2 or 3 times in the open.
But that was a repetition, right? That wasn't.
Yeah, he could have done the same.
Yeah, but he could have done the same. Yeah, he could have just and actually, I got a very funny message from him during the open. He messaged me saying, I refuted the Berlin. I don't know why more people don't do the same. And I mean, he was obviously joking, but sort of conserving energy during like a grueling 15 round tournament is definitely a strategy that makes sense. Yeah.
Then the contract is not the same for the open and the matches.
Right? Maybe it isn't. Yeah, I don't know. I did not recheck. I will be honest with you. I did not recheck. But yeah, this doesn't really look like it's a position you win very often against Magnus after, let's say, knight g7, and then I just swap everything down along the e-file. It really doesn't look very, very promising. Yeah. In the meantime, Hikaru played rook b8. I assume he calculated that b5 doesn't work here for some reason, although I don't quite see why it doesn't work. Why can't we go b5 here?
Maybe take rook b6 or something, but
no. But I mean, if you allow me to take on c6, I'm pretty sure. Like,
I know.
It's just never.
Otherwise, how you not allow it?
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe there's no way to stop it. But I was wondering if I'm just missing some kind of a tactic here. But yeah, like this looks completely busted for black. Yeah. And b5 has been played. I think maybe Hikaru just realized he can probably pass for a bit, but if he's passing, he's not really progressing his game plan either. So he has been forced to kind of invite this invite this.
He can easily lose this. I mean, okay, not that it would make a difference in the match,
Yeah.
but he can easily lose this because it's.
Yeah, it does become kind of very, very bad strategically if the c file does get open. Takes rook a8 played. I guess queen b4 is the most obvious square, keeping an eye on this diagonal, making sure that the black queen doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, queen c3 is probably not a mistake, but I would play queen b4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just looks kind of bad for black, honestly.
Yeah, rook b8 and repetition, and it's like.
Yeah, HG, I don't know. Maybe Hikaru spotted some way to get more pieces to the H file, but I don't see. Like HG, maybe he just kind of goes all in with some kind of queen g5, BC, rook h8, CD, queen h5 or something. And then after king f1, he resigns.
Resign, yeah.
So also there's queen e7 check, which is a bit of a problem. So, I mean, none of this ever works. I don't really see.
I mean,
yeah, he does play rook b8. So maybe the joke about rook b8 and repeat is not an actual joke here. I could go queen c5. There's definitely an argument for queen c5 being stronger than queen a5 here. But yeah, Wesley doesn't want to even bother.
Yeah.
He knows queen a5 exists, so
yeah, he was there before, so yeah.
Yeah, it was possible earlier, so it's possible now.
Yeah.
Wesley is an unbelievably efficient, practical player.
Yeah, the repetitions have worked for him quite nicely in this match. Yeah, I mean, he was whenever
just in general, not just the repetition, but in general, he is just so good about at being efficient, conserving energy, doing sort of exactly enough, not overstretching. Yeah, BC, and now Hikaru just leaves the pawn on 6 alive, because if you allow white to open the c file, you die. So you just leave the pawn. You never actually take this pawn now. You play around it, so to speak.
Yeah,
but the thing is, like you're still busted, and your attack really isn't materializing, and white can start preparing to trade one pair of rooks somehow, and then you really have no material to ever give mate in this game. In that spirit, I'm slightly surprised by queen a5 here. I would have considered playing something like queen a3 to have rook b2, just to start offering trades. Not that anything is wrong with queen a5. Obviously, white is still firmly in control here.
Well, he can, like queen e7, rook h8, he can try, but
yeah. The thing is that still doesn't actually create a threat, but I would have preferred to actually start generating threats. But he goes CD and rook c5, and rook b5 now is an idea. And also after queen e7, you can definitely consider.
No, that's why queen d6. You go queen d6.
Yeah, you go queen d6. But then we go rook b5, rook b7. And
no, go to h8. I mean, what do you have to lose? I mean,
exactly. But the thing is, you basically generate a threat of one check eventually. Although no, I mean there is this, right?
Yeah.
This is how we actually generate a threat which matters. If white does something stupid here, queen f3 actually wins.
Oh, you go queen c7, queen c7.
No, of course. I'm just demonstrating.
Okay.
That like if white actually passes here, queen f3 is a very beautiful way to generate an unstoppable threat of rook h1 mate.
Yeah.
But obviously nobody passes here.
Yeah.
And once again you are kind of dead. Kind of dead.
Yeah, just not in time.
Yeah. Also, white could at some point like consider a king run, so you don't have to do this. But yeah, Hikaru includes rook a8, which I think is clever because you want to give yourself as much time as possible before white actually gets to attack the pawn on c7. So driving the queen away from the a5 square makes a lot of sense. Let's say we go something like queen b4 here, and he does go, I don't know, queen f6.
Queen f6, yeah.
No, this actually, now that we've gotten here, this is a genuinely scary thing. This is a genuinely scary threat, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure this has been played as energetically as possible by Wesley. Maybe he could have played faster somewhere around here. We'll see.
Queen a3, queen a3 with rook b2.
Yeah. Hang on a second. So queen b4, how do we reply to? I guess after queen f6 we have queen b7, right? We go queen b7, rook h8, queen c7, and after queen f3 check we have queen e5 check, and then queen takes h8. Yeah. So we're still just in time, barely.
But can you go rook h2 instead of queen f3?
I always have queen e5, right? That's why it's so important
okay,
to pick
all
up
right.
the pawn on c7. So is there something smarter than queen f6 here?
On d6 first, but then it's lower, but you don't.
Yeah, like
give-
maybe we can do this, and after rook b5, we go back to f6. And
Rook
it's
b8, maybe. Then rook b8.
rook b8. Yeah, rook b8 is very important.
Huh?
And then we start
Yeah,
giving
yeah.
our own checks.
No, but the queen d6 first, and then put the rook on h8, and then switch to f6, maybe. Okay.
So how do we hang on? What's
Put the
our
queen on
what's
d6,
our current best move here?
queen d6, and then maybe.
Queen e6, rook b5. This is where we just were, right? We can't really stop rook b8 now.
Yeah, rook b8 is. Yeah, okay, well. Okay, go back to d8, but then.
Yeah, but then we've allowed rook b7.
Okay, so
and,
yeah, okay.
we
No,
are
no,
not
this
making
is
any
not-
progress. But yeah, it's actually, we were kind of selling this narrative of, this game being effectively over, but this is, very, very touch and go now that queen f6, queen f3 exists as a constant menace over the white position. I currently don't see how Hikaru gets it to work, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Can you go rook h5 to prevent this queen e5 stuff at the end?
Let's,
But I don't know if you're in time, but
but maybe queen b7, rook b8, queen a7, and just kind of stick to you.
then go rook b2 and threaten queen f6 and.
But yeah, I can start chasing this rook now, right? Because if I trade one rook, then you really have not enough material to ever generate a threat. Yeah, you have to have all of your heavy pieces on the board. 2 will not be enough. Only 3. Yeah, very curious, very, very curious. And it's like, if you tune out for like half a second here with white and you allow this, like if after queen f6 you don't have specifically queen b7, queen c7, I have a feeling like this is, it's probably completely winning after queen b7. But if you don't play queen b7, I suspect you're lost, which is kind of weird, because like black is seemingly two moves away from generating a threat, but it's a threat of such magnitude that you just don't stop it apart from that one way of stopping it. So people are suggesting queen d6, rook b5, queen f6, rook b8, rook a2. Yeah, this exists, but the thing is, now let's say I give this check and I just go rook f1, and the rook on f1 will just solidify everything. And although also I'm not really giving mate on the king side, so maybe black takes on c6 or goes, I don't know, rook c2, and just plays this like a quiet position.
Yeah, this is all. Again, it's an open game again, so it's
maybe this is the best Hikaru has. And very relevant question being asked in chat: can white run with the king? The issue with running with the king is that after king f1, black always has rook h2, and your run basically concludes. You are not running any further.
Running anywhere.
Yeah, so yeah, you have to actually keep it on g1 and defend against the black threats by making a lot of progress on the queen side. Yeah, but currently Wesley is just in time to keep it under control. In the meantime, in our Berlin endgame, I was wondering, I don't really understand that decision by Magnus to get himself an endgame with the bishop against the knight, because this knight does look kind of better than this bishop, and I think there was probably somewhere around here I would have put the knight back on d6 and played.
What happened actually? h5, bishop d3.
Yeah, and even here I would probably, although allowing knight e3 is kind of annoying. I don't know, but obviously he hasn't really done much wrong, and I still don't expect this to be enough. But there's definitely some pressure even after, let's say, we go c4, a b, dc, bc, and it's equal, but
yeah, it's equal.
But it's still a game where you can continue looking for ways to generate something. We'll see. Obviously this one is a lot more exciting because we are currently trying to figure out if white actually gets mated. Probably not. Yeah, probably not. But we don't know for sure. He's gone rook a6, which is a kind of a strange choice, because without that rook on h8, you don't actually give very many mates. Also, if Wesley wanted to, and I have a feeling it might not be the worst idea in the world, I could just return this pawn to trade one pair of rooks. I just force you to do this. Then I go rook c5,
Yeah.
and I say with this material balance and only one rook left on the board, I am just completely safe. I think it's a decent practical decision. You don't have to, of course. It's a reasonably healthy pawn on c6, which, like, I'm not saying white is in any way obliged to give it up, but it's a decision.
Right.
There's also, curiously, you can maybe do this and then this.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cute, like rook b7 cb. You cannot play rook b6 because I go rook c8.
Yeah. You have
And
to
if
go
you
to
go
B8.
and if you go queen b8, I was going to go rook c7. But actually, maybe I get mated on the other flank. Yeah, maybe this is a problem. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a perpetual, actually, after rook h1.
Yeah.
Because the bishop on f7 never really gets to f3 once again. But Wesley actually has done what I was suggesting. He has returned the pawn to open up the c file again. I think it's a decent decision. I think he just, by actually removing that pawn from the board, he, first of all, reduces material, and secondly, generates some very much needed counterplay. And Hikaru has played rook b6, which I thought was impossible tactically, but it is. After queen a5, he can play c6, and I thought this was winning, but it's actually not winning. It's losing because of rook b1 check. But yeah, Wesley just goes rook b5, says I don't need to calculate. I'm just going to chase this rook.
Yeah. Okay. This will be this will be a long game. I mean.
Yeah, this probably goes on for a while because I mean, black is probably fine now because the bishop on g2 is also very, very passive. But the issue is with a pair of rooks gone off the board, as we continue mentioning, it's just impossible to actually generate a mating attack on the king side.
You can keep it. Just swing it somewhere, like, I don't know, somewhere. Well, f6, g6 somewhere. Can he keep the rooks?
I think allowing rook b7 looks
Rook
dodgy.
b7, rook b8, allowing that, but I mean,
Yeah, it doesn't look right.
doesn't look right. But
no, I think you have to take on b5. He's taken, played rook b6.
yeah, now the game goes on for a long time.
Yeah, it goes on forever, but it also has become a lot easier for white to play. White just passes.
Yeah.
White just passes forever. You
Yeah,
can
that's
basically
how
play
we
queen
get
c5,
nothing.
queen c5, c6, and we just go bishop f1, bishop g2 forever, or whatever, king f1, king g1. We don't actually need to, need to do very much
No,
anymore.
but you can put the bishop on e2, rook on h4, maybe something you can do if you want to. You can actually do if you want to. Yeah, bishop e2.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, bishop f1, e2 does make a lot of sense. Yeah, to kind of hint that the pawn on g4 is not that safe. In the meantime, Magnus has more or less completely equalized. Now that the king is very active and the pawn on c4 is vulnerable, yeah, you are in no trouble whatsoever anymore in this position. Yeah, just bishop b6 or frankly anything. Yeah, bishop b6 is the most logical move, of course. Yeah,
Maybe even black can play for more. I mean,
no, I mean after rook b1, you don't actually push. Rook b1 is kind of annoying, in terms of. It's actually more annoying than I originally thought. Yeah, after king c6, we can now start pretending again. But I mean, I'm still reasonably certain he doesn't lose. But specifically because king g3, g5, and then h4 check is very strong. I think. Just simplifying immediately.
Yeah, but even rook a4 attacking that pawn.
Yeah. King g3. You can go rook a4, but then I mean I can go c5 for instance. Like my argument is some kind of a position like this. I mean it's still a draw, but if let's say my king is already somewhere around here, it might not be a draw anymore. So yeah, I'd be a little bit careful, but of course Magnus understands all that. So it's I mean he holds this in 99 times out of 100 he holds this.
I think even more.
Three against 3 with 12 minutes on the clock. Yeah, he doesn't lose very many of these.
Yeah, they played quickly.
Mm.
Can I ask you another question? I mean, you guys play so many games against each other. Do you have some like files on the characteristics of the opponents, like Botvinnik did for, I don't know, Smyslov and Talon?
Probably some people do. I don't. No.
Okay.
I definitely have some idea in my head what they are, and I would, but I've never really bothered writing them down.
Okay.
So I keep a mental file. It's not
Yeah,
a very
mental.
detailed.
Okay.
It's not a very detailed mental file, but the mental file that definitely exists. But it's I've never really formalized it.
But you would expect some people to have it like really detailed and
I suspect some people do. Yeah, I suspect this culture still exists.
yeah, Botvinnik style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, just take on c5, go king d6, because rook g7, we have rook g8. Yeah, it's not very exciting.
No.
It's not very exciting. In the meantime, Hikaru is now deep in thought, trying to figure out where his pieces belong here. But yeah, it's just so difficult to imagine how you get your pieces to any kind of decent squares.
draw.
Actually, he just offered a draw. Yeah, I sort of understand that.
Yeah.
It really isn't a position you win. Yeah,
Progress, yeah.
no, but like in particular because his rook is on b6 and his queen is on d8, and they are completely tied to each other. So
Yeah, I was thinking put the bishop on d7 to defend c6 and g4, but then queen d6.
yeah, but then queen d6, and you might get into trouble actually. So yeah, I mean it's a kind of a weird decision to offer a draw here, needing a win. But I understand it. I think he had winning chances, but they are gone by this point. And you know, the same really applies here. h4 check. Yeah, this game is not going to produce any shocks anymore. Should be a draw soonish. Yeah, and they have agreed a draw. Okay, that concludes the day. Actually, they've done it reasonably quickly. Only 3 hours for the 4 games. In both matches. So Wesley wins day 1 and Magnus wins day 1. Jan has already come back from a 1-day deficit to beat Levon in the quarters, so he definitely knows how to do it. But yeah, not going to be an easy task for.
No, but if he gets the same chances like he did today, I mean, it's not implausible, no?
Yeah, and as Eldorado says, yeah, so has Hikaru. For some reason, I was only thinking in that pair of Wesley, who is leading, because he also lost the first day in the quarters. But yeah, Hikaru definitely mounted a very spirited comeback in the second day of the quarters as well. Will be very interesting to watch tomorrow. I think today was exciting, and there were a lot of talking points. But yeah, we know who the happier players will be.
Yeah, definitely.
We know who will enjoy today more than their opponents, and in particular, I think Jan will feel that he has let himself down. I think by the standard of his play and the positions he had, he will feel kind of aggrieved that he actually ended up losing the set.
Yeah, very disappointed. Yeah, I mean, 2 winning positions, and I mean, from the way the games went, still like, yeah, very disappointing at least.
Yeah, they both game 1 and game 2 and game 3, right? They were both.
Yeah. I mean, that Grunfeld was great.
Yeah, let's just hang on a second. That's not the right file. These are the files. Yeah, both this position starting from somewhere around here, like in particular this turning point of not playing f6, but still, like, we know the rook ending was still winning somewhere around here. So you can say he did not really let the victory out of his grasp by not playing f6 there, but
he made it a bit more complicated.
Yeah, he made it slightly more complicated for himself, and then he let it go. And also, of course, this knight endgame. I'm still not entirely sure how you're supposed to win this position, but I'm pretty sure it is winning. We were kind of no, hang on. I was going to suggest this actually, but then there's 93 check, as I now realize, so that doesn't quite work either. But yeah, you have to assume this position is winning for white somehow. Like there has to be a way not to allow the black knight to land on e3 so quickly, and then you win. I'm still not 100% certain how. Maybe you play 5 here and just start pushing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there must be.
Yeah, but there must be something, and you definitely don't want to just allow an immediate draw like this, which is. Yeah, that was a miss, and of course the Grunfeld, as we mentioned.
Yeah, the Grunfeld was.
So yeah, that concludes the the day for today. I'm not sure what the plans are for tomorrow, but I'm very happy we got to do this today. I really enjoyed doing this with you, Alex. So
Thanks.
thanks,
Likewise.
thanks for being here, and I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. I have seen some exclamation mark exclamation mark mic possession percentages. I'm aware I'm not the best at sharing the microphone, and I apologize for Alex to Alex.
No, it's fine. No, I enjoyed it really. It was great. I mean, I really like always like talking to people like you. I mean, because you're open, and I can. I mean, all these questions I asked you. I mean, I never had a chance to ask. I mean, you or any strong player. So I'm always curious about these things, and yeah, hope I get another chance to continue my.
Yeah, we'll see what tomorrow brings in terms of coverage. But yeah, for now, thanks very much for watching. This has been fun, and the tournament definitely continues tomorrow with the second sets of the same semifinals.
Yeah.
Cheerio.
Cheers. Cheers.
And then awkward pause for another 40 seconds. That would be, I used to, I don't know if you know who that is, but Jan, maybe some 10 years ago, introduced me to Craig Ferguson, who